Your name is Catherine Pollard Griggs.
Yes.
You are the wife of Colonel George Griggs.
Yes.
11 years of marriage.
Yes.
It's true that your husband is and has been the head of special operations under Admiral Kelso, NATO.
Yes.
And it's true that you were the head of the hospitality committee.
Yes.
You were the member of the executive board of NATO's Wives Club.
Absolutely.
And also that your husband's background includes NATO Defense College in Rome.
Yes.
Princeton class of 1959.
Yes.
His intelligence career, his spy career began in Vietnam.
Yes.
And it's also true that it continues under this day.
Absolutely, under General Wilhelm.
And that your husband was the liaison between the White House and President Jamal of Beirut, Lebanon, at the time of the bombing of the Marine barracks in Lebanon.
Yes.
And in fact, your husband was an alcoholic.
Absolutely.
And probably
Incredible.
is to this day.
Absolutely.
And during these drunken stupors, he would, so to speak, blab on and tell you everything he knew about the intelligence community.
Everything.
Nothing was hid.
No.
It was like he wanted to relieve himself and unburden his heart.
Yes.
And so he told you everything that you now know about the
Yes.
intelligence community.
Yes.
And that you are talking about. And in fact, he told you that they knew the bombing was coming down in
Yes.
Beirut before it occurred.
Absolutely.
And also, by your association with him, you have come to understand and know, as shocking as this may sound to the people who are viewing this, that the United States military is literally run by sexual deviants heavy on the homosexual side.
Truly.
And that in the United States military, people like Jeffrey Dahmer and Kaczynski and McVeigh and Oswald and a host of other people who have a sexual deviant background, primarily homosexual, these individuals are actually sought out by people within the military,
The Army.
For advancement into intelligence type
Yes,
work
yes.
because they are so easy to control.
Yes.
And they actually become mind slaves, and that the U.S.
Yes.
military,
Yes.
literally,
Yes.
as outrageous as it sounds, is a mind control operation.
Yes. Totally now. Totally now. They've gotten rid of the good folks, like MacArthur. Got rid of them, one by one.
Good.
Totally take over.
All right. Let's talk about the individual who told you that we've never actually been an enemy of the Soviet Union, that somehow that's all just been a scam. Who was that individual?
My husband. When the first 3 years we were married, he was drinking 3 or 4 straight gins, vodkas a night, a bottle of wine, and a beer machine beside his desk. I only knew him 2 months before he asked me to marry him. He'd been married before, and his first wife was a total alcoholic.
Now, someone would ask, why would you marry a man after knowing him only 2 months?
I'm a strong Protestant Christian, and I have a lot of predestination. I'm a Scottish grandmother, and I was working as assistant director of the Chamber of Commerce. I had a brand new, relatively new Saab, my first car. It was an '83 Saab. I bought it secondhand from somebody who's 84. And my husband was driving an '83 Saab. Mine was a turbo, his was not. He rented part of my house. It was, I had a young doctor and his wife and 2 children who were renting the house. They were leaving before the end of the lease time, and they put the ad in the paper and told me about all these people, and I said, no, 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 no. And I was, had been engaged to someone else. You know, I was just renting my house out. And they said that there was this man who had a dog and a mother-in-law and a son, and was a widower and a Marine colonel. Well, and it had a dog, and I said, no, absolutely not. So the point that I'm trying to make is that he was someone I was not really, I didn't cotton to. He sort of acted like a robot. He was very clipped, and I didn't want to like him. But when I heard he was a Princeton graduate, I always thought that was kind of great. When I heard he spoke fluent French, and I speak fluent French, when I found out that he drove a Saab, I drove a Saab. And when I found out that he went to the same school, high school, that my uncle had gone to, was in the same eating club at Princeton that my Uncle Ben had gone to. He was on scholarship and went to Princeton. Everything the same as my uncle, who was also in intelligence. But I didn't think about that then. I was just thinking, you know, this is God. This is too much, too many similar things. And so it overwhelmed me. And he's very, very good looking. At that time, he was very good looking. Now he's aged and he really is haggard.
Had a rough life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was overwhelmed by him. Plus, my job at the chamber was very demanding. I was doing a great job. But he said that he wanted me to retire because he wanted to make general. And the man who could make him general was General Louis Buell, because it was just a matter of having somebody who would make you general to be general. It wasn't what you did.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Buell,
You needed somebody above to pull you on up.
Yeah, Louis just happened to die, and we went to his funeral, and George didn't make it because Louis died. But his first wife had been, I'm sure, battered to death. I was battered, and, you know, but I thought it was just Vietnam and all this kind of thing. And I was trying to get him to stop drinking because I couldn't imagine how the Marine Corps would allow someone to be a total alcoholic who couldn't even carry on a normal conversation dry. I mean, he can't even carry on a normal conversation with anyone unless he's drinking. He never smiled unless he had a glass in his hand. He drank solidly. I have a letter in his own hand that tells, and this is the truth, he drank solidly this amount that I just said for 30 years. His booze bill, and they never entertained, he and his first wife, was $250 a month. And this is from the Naval store. Now think about that. He was totally snockered, just his whole brain, and yet he's working. He is head of running half the world's Marine Corps under General Al Gray.
A man who is mentally incapacitated.
Totally.
Unless he's inebriated, and then when he's drunk, I mean, he's in a different, altered state of mind.
He can't discern anything.
He can follow orders.
Oh, and that's all he does. And he told me when, I mean, one of our many conversations, he was trying to, he thought I was, you know, because my family were all naval officers and I was out in the world with the chamber, you know, that I just sort of went along with this kind of stuff. And, yeah, I mean, it was just incredible to me that...
How many wives of high-up military people are there, like yourself, that are speaking out?
None. I mean, they're all 30-year Marine wives. They're Stepford wives. They are petrified. I have had conversations before I went public, before I went to live with Sarah McClendon, who saved my life.
And Sarah McClendon is
the senior White House correspondent.
Is she that little old lady we see on TV asking the president those pointed, jabbing questions all the time?
The little red-headed, feisty Texan who broke the Billy Saul Estes thing. She doesn't go along with the clone group of reporters who are all, most of them, intelligence officers. I think she was in intelligence because she was in the Army during World War II. And she's just a remarkable mind, and I lived with her for 5-6 months. And what's interesting is she called my home. After I had called her or seen her on C-SPAN, she couldn't get through to my house. I was living there by myself. Every time she called my home, this is 1996, from March until she finally got hold of me, she had to go to another phone in Maryland to get me on the phone. Every time she called me from her house, she was told, "This is a military base, and the Griggses don't live here anymore." Now, that was my phone number long before I met George Griggs. It's my granddaddy's farm, the house that I own.
So your phone was being diverted.
Absolutely diverted. It's electronic warfare. It's part of their deception. They have many levels, but it's all under a big operation. They have an operation now to totally ruin me. His first wife was murdered.
Now, you know, some of the things you talk about here, this big operation, you've come to understand about the largeness of it, the intricacies of it, through a diary that you have. Is that right? Could you hold that diary up so we can get a look at that? And the thing that I found, this is the actual diary. Just hold it up kind of like chest high.
Okay.
There you go. And these are the actual handwritten notes of your husband.
Absolutely.
And they reveal an awful lot. In fact, does the military or those in the intelligence community, do they realize you have a copy of this?
They do now.
You know.
I had a phone conversation with General Jim Joy.
How long ago was this?
It was in February of '96. I tried to ask the colonels. They knew I was on the move, trying to find information. And my husband had mentioned General Jim Joy.
Yeah, it's hitting the microphone right there. Just
go
ahead.
Sorry.
That's all right.
All right. And I called General. I had to call a General Miller in Jacksonville, who was in my husband's address book, and told him I was looking for Christmas card list, and you know I needed General Joy's telephone number because one of the colonels whom I trusted, Colonel Ken Millis, lied to me. Captain Phil Holwager lied to me. And so I got this General Jim Joy, who was the one who was in the Operation Just Cause. Was it Just Cause, the one in Panama? He was in charge of all the psychological operations, the booming music that they hit Noriega with, the chasing him around, the
same stuff they did at Waco, too.
Of course.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yes.
Okay.
That's General Jim Joy, who was behind Waco.
I see.
And General Carl Steiner, the Snake,
who
tried to steal Desert Storm away from Schwarzkopf.
Okay, so but you were trying to get some addresses, and they were giving you the complete runaround.
Oh, don't even know him.
Don't even know him.
Don't even know him. And I knew him because my husband told me, you know, that he worked with General Joy and General Steiner. They were the triumvirate. But they had different names. They were, you know, in plain clothes. They had different passports. So I got him on the phone. I was given the number by this General Miller. And I said...
So in the movies, when they say they shall disavow any knowledge, that's not just a little thing for movies. That's the truth. They disavow knowledge of all these people.
Totally lie.
Yeah. But you nailed him down.
Yes. I said, General Joy, I'm Kay Pollard Griggs. My husband, George Griggs, was in the Marine Corps, and he's battered me badly, and we're looking for him because, you know, this has been going on too long, and blah, blah, blah. And I was recording this conversation, you see. I was sitting on my bed with the diary right out in front of me. And he didn't know that I had the diary. He didn't know anything. It was cold call, like they do cold murders after when they graduate from SEAL school. Cold murders. I was doing a cold telephone call. And he said, no, I don't believe, and these were his exact words, no, I don't believe I know your husband. This is someone my husband, I have a card that General Joy sent my husband after the murder, of the death of his first wife, saying, call me anytime. You know, this man, here I was, traumatized, battered, beaten, and he lies to me. So I said, well, General Joy, that's funny, because I'm looking at my husband's diary when he was in Beirut, and you're meeting with him almost every day. I said, you know, first, before that, I said, you know, he was the chief of staff for General Al Gray. You know, he's one of Gray's boys. You know, chief of staff of Fleet Marine Force Atlantic, runs half the world, all of the Middle East, NATO Defense College. You don't know my husband? You're a general? You live outside of Quantico? Don't know my husband? I made it very clear. No, can't say as I do. So then I told him about the diary, and these are all immature adolescent males. These are men who don't know how to deal properly with adults. They lie. They're deceptive. They hide behind trees.
But when you nailed him on the diary, when
diary,
he realized...
He said, his exact words were, "Oh, that George Griggs."
Uh-huh.
Oh, that George Griggs.
And that's just the beginning of the kind of runaround deception that you've found with these people.
Absolutely.
And no doubt that's why they would like very much to have this diary.
Yeah.
This one page I found particularly interesting. What you, and you're probably more familiar with their husband's handwriting, instead of me reading it, read these notes that he had recorded there. These might help.
Okay, I've got these.
All righty.
A number of the Marines told me a little bit about Dale Dorman. Dale Dorman's not a happy camper.
Okay.
Dale Dorman, because of some mistakes my husband made, was shot. It's 7:15 to 7:30. Dorman exited Riviera. That was a place, sort of a hiding place or whatever. Gray and tan Mercedes. Up to 5 shots were fired. He raised his left arm. One round penetrated his arm. One struck his chest. Walked back into Riviera to the desk and called Post 1. Security vehicle went to pick him up. Returned to Durafound, 15 to 18 meters away, and treated. Medvac called 7:50. Medvac wheels down at 08:10 in a H-Bird helicopter. Riviera Hotel, approximately 1/9 of a mile west of the embassy. Dorman has been there since arrival, except briefly during a period of siege. He was not wearing protection. Saw 3 men in the vehicle. One leaned out back with a shortened rifle or automatic weapon. Sentry at B1 saw and heard nothing. It's just one page of the diary.
Sentry saw and heard nothing.
Right.
In other words, the sentry
Don't talk.
doesn't talk.
Right.
Yeah. And there's just a whole world of these kind of assassinations and murders and directed. In fact, at one point, your husband actually just discussed people being eliminated.
Yeah.
Like you're shooting ducks.
Yeah. Oh, we had innumerable discussions over dinner. He'd already had his 4 gins.
Ah.
Now, he'll talk to any woman or anybody who drinks with him, he'll talk. This man, what is he doing in security? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. When he was at NATO, I'll get right back to that, but when he was at NATO and he was the head of special operations, in fact, I've got copies of his secret check in and out papers at NATO. He had them at home. I hope I still have those, but anyway, the point is, I could get in and out of the NATO headquarters just walking in, and there were all these shady-looking garbage men, and George would leave his office door wide open at lunchtime. He was flirting with a secretary who was a chief who knew everything. You know, the point is, what lacked security? And I had to say, George, look, you have got to do something about the security here at NATO because I can walk in and out. He said, oh, just forget it. Forget it. Don't do anything. And I'm a very demonstrative person when it comes to security and honor and integrity and your word is your bond. My culture, my father, my people believe in, in this nation, in my state, Virginia, my people, my culture, my God. This is important. You don't just treat that kind of thing lightly. So I said to him, if you don't do something, I'm going to Landis Kelso. I was in the Wives Club. She was the head.
And Landis Kelso is the
wife of Admiral Frank Kelso, who's a wonderful man, honorable man, wonderful woman. And I had great rapport with her. I sort of stopped an international incident with the French and the English and the British who were ganging up against the French, and they were over, something that was really minor, but it was huge. And she helped me I determined that it was a problem, called her up, and she helped me, and we diverted and averted a major thing. So he knew what I would do, and I said, look, if you don't write a report and do something about this, then I'm just going to go to Landis and say what's happening. Point is that the man would, when he was in Beirut, he was sleeping with a spy and double agent Mary Clark Yost Talab, whose husband was a double agent, an Arab at the American University of Beirut. He leaves his briefcase wide open. He was with her for 5 weeks in a hotel. This is a married woman with 2 children, and who followed him all around the United States, is still seeing him. Met him in London, lived in Virginia Beach, was working in international programs at ODU while he was married.
Would you say your husband is fairly typical of these powerful men?
Oh, absolutely typical. When I was single, working at the Virginia Center for World Trade, 4 of us old friends that I went to school with, Molly Holt and a few others, we would go all together to a place called Poppy's. At that time, he was Captain Jerry Unruh. Now he's Admiral 3 stars Jerry Unruh. This man, again, was married. He was running around with the tailhook crowd. I did not know he was married. I knew he was a Navy captain. I was told by him that he would be taking command of the carrier Saratoga.
Mm-hmm.
He followed me everywhere, even went up to Wintergreen. Now, he sent me pictures, private, separate pictures of the Israeli guys waving to him. He was a tailhook pilot, the airplanes, the jets. And he was a Mustang, but totally immoral. Totally, and knew that he would never get caught. In fact, he was in tailhook. They had a big party down at the beach, and they were doing, I didn't go by that time because I learned that he was married. And the point is that he and this whole group, I've found out about Al Gray,
General Al Gray.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that, what is this this consistent thread of the sexual degeneracy and the homosexuality and just the raw, base nature that seems to be so prevalent? Have you ever determined what it is? Why?
Well, it's a way to handle them, to control them.
Years ago, you thought of people like General Eisenhower as an upright man. I don't know.
I know some things about him.
How far back can we go to where you find people that are decent and moral and upright?
Right.
Where you had real people who defended the Constitution, who had a feeling.
Robert E. Lee was.
There were nationalists and America first. You got to go back a good ways, probably.
Absolutely. You see, growing up in Norfolk, Virginia, my whole family have been naval officers and also working. In other words, they would enter the service during a time of war, of need, and then they go back to being fathers and being husbands. I had a wonderful father, wonderful grandparents, wonderful family who put their family first. Well, they put their God first, Christ, and then their wives and their sons and their children. This is the way America was built. Now, these generals in the Marine Corps and Army, they don't look at it that way, according to my husband. They're ordered, and my husband, being chief of staff, told his men it was like this. It's the Marine Corps first, the brotherhood, the cherry Marine, the bonding that goes on. Mm-hmm. The Marine Corps comes before God, before Jesus Christ, before the country, and then it's whatever the, the religion they have. I don't know, because my husband is not a Christian. He's an existentialist. And most of these guys are. Certainly Al Gray is. Krulak. I think his wife goes to church, but
But their God is this brotherhood.
The brotherhood, and it's very German. It's very.
Does it have Masonic leanings?
Oh, absolutely Masonic leanings. In fact, the admiral who was the last admiral whose car my husband bought, he was very impressed with this Norwegian admiral. They're all Masons now.
Mm-hmm.
Not all Masons, but this brotherhood, Opus Dei, if they're, or the mob. I mean, the one thing I've been able to determine about the current Marine Corps, the Marine Corps that my husband came in with, Gray, Reap, Sheehan, they're all mob.
Now, when you say mob, you're talking mafia type mob?
New Jersey mafia, right. Mm-hmm. Right.
And there's a...
Brooklyn, New Jersey.
Okay, is the mob and this military bunch, they're one and the same?
The Marine Corps guys are the hitmen, and they are mercenaries. They'll work for anybody. You think the Marine Corps is under the Navy? No way. They can just as easily be under an Army colonel, and if the Army colonel meets a Marine Corps colonel, the Army colonel is superior. They'll switch hats just like that. My husband said it's just, no big a deal. I'll go work for the State Department. I don't really. The Marine Corps is just it's like a smoke and mirrors thing. And they're run out of New Orleans. 4th Marine, Oswald. I mean, they are not, on his level, he said, we've never been an enemy of the Soviet Union. They work with these communists. The man who started this whole intelligence operation, the OSS, he was recruiting known communists who were involved in the Spanish, subverting Spain. There's no more. They're not Americans. They're not Christians. They're German existentialists. Now, what are they doing running our nation? It's kind of, they have more affinity for the state of Israel right now than they do our nation. They don't care about American citizens. The judges now in the courts are military officers following chain of command orders. They're not independent judges.
So all this spills over then into the political areas like the judgeships.
Sure. They're all Marines,
senators,
or Army officers,
congressmen.
Sure. Who is John Warner? A Marine. Who is Chuck Robb? A Marine. They control the powerful committees. Dick Davis, Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, a Marine. His wife was, I hate to say it, well, everybody knows, in Norfolk, a prostitute. Martha was a wonderful woman, I'm sure, to him, but they were involved in organized crime. Now, I don't know, I know that our present governor in Virginia is an Army officer. He takes orders. So the question that all of us wives are asking now is, well, who gives the orders? If they're told that we, the wives, are enemies, how are the sons going to grow up? If the mothers who are teaching them truth are lied to, and the husbands are told, ordered by the likes of Al Gray, major homosexual, when he was in the, I shouldn't say this, but it's true, when he was in Marseille, the boys are called Gray's boys. He never married.
Okay, the boys referring to everybody under
boys,
him.
Everybody under Al Gray. And he had a separate organization while he was commandant that was a contract organization, getting information on people, having them, if they weren't corrupted, corrupting them, farming people, so that he would have something on them, so that they would use that later to control and manipulate them. It's like what happened to Newt Gingrich. All of these guys, like Newt Gingrich, Bill Clinton, who've gone through the sweats, like Cohen, what happens is they get a little tiny thing to prove their power, how much power they have. They use guys like Michael Isikoff in Newsweek, or their little clones, you know, like Woodward and Bernstein, who are operatives.
Okay, they're former military too.
Well, oh my goodness. They were, I believe it was Bob Woodward. It's either Woodward or the other one.
Bernstein.
See, I knew some British intelligence people. And I was told the whole story about how he was running around with Peter Jay's wife, who was the ambassador to Great Britain. And this man was sleeping with Peter Jay's wife. And there was a movie, I think Jack Nicholson was this guy. And this was her story about what she went through while her husband, the columnist, was sleeping with the ambassador's wife to get information on what was going on in Great Britain. Now this is the team that broke Watergate. So what were the motives? Of course, Watergate was horrible. And Nixon had something like 60 military JAGs alone working for him, doing dirty tricks. One of those JAGs was Ernest Frank Reynolds. Changed his name to Ern Reynolds. He came to me. I was farmed. Tim Hunter, an intelligence army operative, came to me with this story about, oh, you know, hard luck, you know, Saudi Arabia, and I was in the army, and I have this friend who can help you out with your legal case. He's a really good guy, you know, Ern Reynolds. And if you meet him, I know he'll do some free legal work for you. So I was staying with Sarah, and I didn't have any money, and but I took the little, you know, the train into Fairfax. He met me in his Volvo station wagon with his jacket on. I didn't know what the big 4 meant on his leather jacket. And he took me to his...
what did it mean?
4th Marine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Operative.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the most fantastic apartment. See, I'm a big book person, and I love, you know, reading history and everything, and I'm impressed by people who read, who are intelligent, who are wise.
You have a master's yourself in?
Scottish history, and undergraduate in Virginia history.
Okay.
I worked on the Dunmore papers. I studied with people like Ian Cowan and Geoffrey Barrow and Tom Devine. These are scholars in Great Britain who are experts on the Reformation, and my interest was Mary Queen of Scots at the Reformation, and also Lord Dunmore, who was the last royal governor of Virginia, and I was working on the Dunmore papers too.
I see.
So
you had an interest in, I mean, this guy's layout impressed you.
Yeah.
He's a real intellectual.
Yeah, and he was divorced, you know, a sad story and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Worked for the Justice Department. Mm-hmm. Was supposedly a whistleblower. Mm-hmm. Supposedly a Christian.
So this guy's really going to help you out?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Boy, did I buy into that.
It's like the old story, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you.
Oh, yeah. So I caught him sneaking around my house at 2 o'clock one morning.
2 in the morning?
Yeah, and of course I'm most gullible in school, you know. So I'm trusting, I'm a Christian, and I always look to the good side of somebody. I see the good little part. It took me about 3 times. The guy had my original documents that had just been in my briefcase under his car seat. He invites me to a cybernetics conference in Champaign, Illinois. I leave Martha Roundtree's apartment, and it's arranged so that all of my things are in his safe little car, and we're going to his parents' house in Roanoke. And of course, you know, you can't take all your things to the cybernetics conference, because I was going home. Mm-hmm. But this is a smooth psychological operations guy. I mean, he is doing psychological operations on a woman in Champaign, Illinois, who is the lover of a German spy who he's been writing letters to her, and he's showing me these letters. The guy's perverted. I mean, he's writing Susan Parenti these letters, you know, like invading her mind, and, you know, why are you... And Susan's written him 2 letters or 3 letters. She's very beautiful, and he's got pictures. But he's sharing these letters with a group of men, 7 men, one of whom is head of intelligence, is head of computers and the intelligence for the Army, Ron Jarmuth. Now, Ron Jarmuth comes right out and says, I'm an anarchist. You know, I mean, his family are New York, old Zionist Jews. He met his wife in, I think, in a kibbutz. You know, I mean, he's a nice, personable guy, but when you say to somebody like me, I'm an anarchist, just so blithely, and you know, and he's always over at Ern's house. And Ern's got a picture by his bedstead drawn by a man who's a known homosexual whom he met when he was at the University of Virginia, who was the chaplain at Hollins College, who my best friend was there. And she said, he's a well-known homosexual. And I'm thinking, what is a picture of Ern Reynolds doing being painted when he's young by this known homosexual? And then I find out that the man who enlisted him in the Republican Party, he was doing dirty tricks for 7 years for the Republican National Committee. I mean, dirty tricks. Underneath this man from West Virginia who was a homosexual and left all of his money to Ern's son and took his son on a trip. Now, and Ern is a lobbyist for homosexuals. He's just, you know, working in the Episcopal Church. He's got a group of women that he meets with at the seminary. I'm sure that my case, my profile, he's probably got charge of it now. He's the expert on Catherine Pollard Griggs, but he's not. The guy is absolutely not grown up.
But
he's a thief.
And so
He
your
was a
your case just got stonewalled, just got sucked into a memory hole by a guy who was acting under orders to
Sure.
you get Catherine Griggs under your control, and that's that.
Sabotage her.
Sabotage, yeah.
Sure.
And he stole your documents.
Sure.
And
Sure. Sabotage me. Turned on me right in the middle of the commissioner's hearing. Laughed at me when I cried. You know, this is a guy who hates women. And the interesting thing is I went to his family home, and he had a wonderful mother. And he told me that his father battered his mother. His father was in the Marine Corps, and there was a picture of Chesty Puller in the basement.
Well, that fits the profile, though,
Yeah.
doesn't it? I mean, if his father battered the mother, which he grew up in this dysfunctional environment.
Totally dysfunctional.
So when he hit the military, or he was noticed in college or ROTC or whatever, so here's a guy who is susceptible to mind control.
Sure, he's
to
got,
be developed.
Yeah.
I think you used the term for budding. He was recognized as a potential bud,
Yes.
and he's moving up the ranks.
His roommate was from New York, was a Zionist, and he was an outcast at the University of Virginia.
An outcast.
Yeah.
Why would he be an outcast?
He felt he was an outcast. So he had this roommate, and I don't know, this man who was the homosexual from West Virginia. And we had to go by through his town, and, you know, the guy died. But this homosexual was a friend of the homosexual at Hollins, who was a chaplain there at Hollins College, whom I met. We had lunch with him one day. The father had the picture of Chesty Puller, and so forth. Well, Ern, I knew he was trying to sabotage me, and so forth, because I had already had Alexander Robinson come down from Princeton every other weekend, my husband's teacher, who was also a Marine, whose family brought over the Saudi royals, who was one of my husband's teachers, and I caught him walking around my house at 2 o'clock in the morning. I overheard him talking to my best friend's mother saying, now we just, undercutting me. We just don't know. Kay is just under so much stress, And he's a very handsome, very dignified guy, Went to Columbia University, was in Algeria, that area with the Marine Corps. Then went into the boys' school, the Hun school. He's an intelligence, without a doubt. His brother-in-law was Bill Eddy, Colonel Bill Eddy, who was I believe it's the brother-in-law. I've got to get, his name is Eddy, and it's Bill Eddy, but he was the translator for the Saudi royals during the Roosevelt administration. And the Roosevelt, the New York crowd, was trying to steal all of those countries away from Great Britain. The Balfour Declaration had sort of come in, and there was a guy named Moose, not the present Moose, who has the Africa desk at the State Department, who's an African American, but this was a guy named Moose who helped the State Department steal Saudi Arabia away from Britain, because Britain was allowing the Saudis to be Saudis, to keep their religion, to keep their culture.
Right.
They were not trying to kill people right off the bat, So George is part of that OSS crowd.
And their stock and trade is just murder, assassination,
Absolutely.
creating conflicts, phony baloney wars,
Yes.
conflicts,
Yes.
for the purpose of making
Selling weapons.
money,
Drugs,
drugs.
controlling the drug flow.
Now let's talk about the drug flow in the United States.
Yeah.
Based on your conversations with your husband,
I met drug lords through him.
such as
I met the head guy. See, George was telling me everything. First 3 years of marriage, it was just like, you're with me, gal, because he was so used to talking to Mary Halab and Anne Bouchou,
yeah.
The group partnerships with sex and all this stuff. And I'm a pretty loving woman, and I'm fun. I was then.
But you're not into swinging.
No, I'm not into
and
swinging.
swapping husbands and
No,
wives.
and George was into swinging. He and Sue and Nancy and Jim Earl. This was, and I heard about that from colonels and one Navy captain.
But then your husband also would tell you that this is just life the way it is
Oh, yeah.
in our crowd.
Oh, yeah. This is
All
it.
these generals, admirals, colonels, all these people.
Yeah.
it's-
Men, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he was just, I'm trying to remember what we were on, something that was, that I was going to say, and I remember,
Well,
anyway, I can't remember.
Oh, he's talking about the fact that they're into making money, and
Yeah,
this is the
yeah.
drug business.
Oh, yeah,
So you met all these drug
Yes.
lords
I met Fahim.
as if they were just business partners.
Oh, yeah. Well, he told me what they did. He, Fahim was a colonel. He's in the diary, too. But George said what they do is they nurture, they cultivate the sons of prominent families in all, the State Department finds them. They're called rising stars.
Yeah.
And they turn, that's the word they use, George used, they turn them, they bring them in, they rope them in. If they're alcoholics, give them more booze than anybody. If they want women, they find the women, they turn them, and then let them know if they ever get in any trouble, come on over here, we'll take care of you. Well, Fahim had come on over here. Things were getting hot in Beirut. He was a Catholic. He was very prominent family, and he was going in hiding up in Maine. I remember I had his number, and I talked to his sister. But they just culled a lot of the stuff out of the house. the very first time when George kind of disappeared, and and then I found out about what happened with Sue, his first wife, and all of that.
Well, now, did they? Did you come to learn how drugs actually come into the country?
Yeah.
I saw a news piece one time where a pilot who was in prison alleged that they actually landed on military bases with huge planes loaded with dope.
This is how they all brought them in, the Norwegians, the Brits. The drugs, you see, they would come down through Burma, Turkey. They'd come through the Bekaa Valley. The banks were in Beirut. They were in Panama, Mexico, in St. Thomas, after, the laundering of cash. You see, cash, that's why some of the banks in New York, you can very easily find out who the drug lords are. Barry McCaffrey, I saw him 2 weeks ago, and he said something he let it slip out. He's an Army general, He said, we haven't done any more or any less in the last 5 years. Now,
in terms of the war on drugs?
Yeah, no, they're just holding it. The word he used, I think, was holding it. It was a word that you could tell they'd used in briefings. They were the guys who were doing the drugs are military officers. In fact,
doing the drugs meaning controlling
them.
The flow.
Oh yeah. In fact, one of George's best friends, Colonel Ray Moore, I suspect that Ray Moore was from the gang, the ghetto area in California. His wife was a very good friend of mine, Charlotte.
She's dead?
No, he is.
Oh, he is.
But when George would sort of disappear.
Your husband?
Yeah, all of a sudden they would appear and be in the house. Calm me down, take me over, exercise, do all this mystical stuff. And it was really funny because they came back from Mexico. And George just happened to disappear, and they were right there, Well, Ray Moore, all this stuff, I knew about his background, and I started thinking, what's going on in Mexico? Why the heck is Ray going down to Lake Chapala? And he would talk about his day. His day would be going out with the men, playing golf, going to this spa with the men, They were doing deals, going to Guadalajara. And there would be Tom Reap, another former chief of staff for Gregg, going to Mexico. There would be Ken Millis, another temporary chief of staff when George's wife's funeral took place. There was Ken Millis. Now these are guys who are part of we call the Brotherhood, and they're all going down to Mexico. So what's going on in Mexico? Ray's one of these guys who wants to sit in the sun. He doesn't want to go down there to Mexico and do all that stuff, but he did. And he got cancer all of a sudden. And another guy got cancer all of a sudden, right after he got out of the Marine Corps.
Now, not to diverge from what we're talking about right now, but did your husband ever tell you anything about any disease warfare, like giving people sicknesses
Yeah, that's part of. He called it ABC, NBC. It was something like nuclear, biological, chemical. ABC, atomic, biological, chemical. They call it biologicals. And in fact, I'm not going to mention his name because this is a guy who's really a good guy who's scared. The word they use is shitless. Excuse me. But that's the word. This guy is petrified.
Because?
Because he's doing that work.
The chemical?
And biological work. The Marine...
You mean the laboratory work or the implementation?
Dealing. Subterfuge, deception in the Middle East.
Okay, and they use...
he's a Marine Corps colonel.
Disease-causing drugs?
Absolutely.
And then how do they administrate them?
With in missiles and in I mean this is an elaborate big business. Like Peter Kawaja, Marine Corps guy, who's working in plain clothes at one of the plants in Florida. This is why George is in Florida. This is why they're all down in Florida, because all of this stuff is being. We manufactured the chemicals and biologicals that were in Iraq. Now, if you don't believe me, you don't believe Peter Kawaja, a Marine Corps colonel, he says they killed his wife, I believe him. He worked in one of these factories. It was supposedly a candy factory where they were manufacturing deadly, deadly killer things. The Marine Corps, Al Gray, Krulak, Carl Mundy, he's in the CFR. He was in Ken Millis's class, who was the chief of staff, the one who controlled me. You know, I went to his mother's house in 7 Mile, Ohio. Flo, his father was a German Nazi. I'm not saying that, you know, being a German Nazi is bad, but he's part of this group. And if you don't believe me, if you don't believe Peter Kawaja about the drugs, you can, I mean, it's just, it's everybody knows. There's a guy named Randy Hebert, Lieutenant Colonel, hero, American patriot. This is a guy who should be the commandant of the Marine Corps, Krulak. I'm talking to you, I'm talking to Al Gray, I'm talking to you, Carl Mundy. You all are adolescent, immature. I call you twerps. You're liars, you cheat, you steal, you kill. You're beneath the contempt of any of your wives. They are scared to death. Why do you do this to your wives, guys? Look at that tape of Randy Hebert. I knew Chesty Puller, and this is a strong, wonderful guy. I knew his wife, Virginia Mack. I knew a real Marine. You can't say that you knew them because you didn't. I did. Randy Hebert sat. He could hardly talk. He was leading a platoon into Iraq. His wife was sitting to his left. His wonderful father was sitting to his right. And he said that his colonel, he's a lieutenant colonel at that time, I believe he was a lieutenant colonel, he said, my colonel ordered me, he said, all of our registers were saying, this is danger. There are chemicals, biologicals everywhere. I was told, and I was, you know, followed orders, and he was having a hard time talking. His wife was, this is a young guy. His wife was having to interpret for him. He was crying. He'd been turned on by you guys. He said, on those canisters, on those boxes were American flags. Those were American biologicals that we were walking into that killed me, that you, Gray, and you, Scrowcroft, and you, McFarlane, and you guys knew. You, Ed Wilson, best friend of my husband. You all sold to Saddam Hussein. And not only that, I talked to the man who trained the woman who was sent over from Iraq to learn how to build the biologicals and chemicals, the plants. She was trained here in the United States, and you all know that. And Randy Hebert's testimony says everything that I could say 1,000,000 times better, because this is a man who's a real man, unlike the generals, unlike the colonels. This is a real hero.
Now, is Randy Hebert, is he still alive?
I don't know, and I hope and I pray to God that he is. Because this is the man who should take over our Marine Corps, or his wife. That's why they don't have any women in special operations. Because that's why they don't have any African Americans. They're too honest. They're too strongly Christian. Now, the only guy I know who is who is involved is a homosexual, and his buddy is an Israeli agent. And they are lovers. They're a pair. But
well, now,
he's now a colonel, and he is under the guidance of Ken Millis.
Okay, now as these generals, over the period of years, this is consolidated to where they're all part of this club. I mean, this is something that's been going on for years and years and years.
Members of the firm.
Okay, so as the firm grows, even as the old guys, the gray heads get old, die off, retire, whatever, they've already set in motion a system that culls out these young, budding, rising stars, and they move their way up. Well, then, in time, it consolidates to where no one is in this unless they're in the club.
Absolutely.
So is your conclusion, based on what you know from your husband's revelations, reading his diaries, this sort of thing, is there anybody in the U.S. military, the Army and Marines, anybody in the level of, you know, your generals and your colonels, is there anybody who would not be in this club?
There's nobody who doesn't know. In special operations, I would say, and I would put money in the bank on this, not one of them is not a party to this. It's not once they get that bird, Colonel, that bird, they go through an initiation ceremony. This is not and my husband told me about that too.
What's the initiation ceremony like?
They get them drunk. Dining in, shellback. He told me.
Oh, dining in. This is a term that they use.
Oh, yeah.
A code word.
Oh, yeah.
Shellback?
Shellback. They,
what's that mean?
Anal sex. But they get them really drunk. The guys who are that way do it. It's a group situation thing. And I was told by two colonels who said, you know, it's normal, Kay. This is just what we do in battle, you know.
This is just good old boys?
This is just what we do, Kay.
They get drunk and they
get drunk and they ejaculate. They beat each other off. You know, it's awful. Now, I'm not God, and I'm not going to judge them and their souls. This is a well-oiled system. And when you've got the commandant well-known as a cherry Marine,
which means?
Bottom. They're the bottom. The Navy guys are on the top. Think about this, because Walter Chrysler in Norfolk, each port has a hierarchy. Wealthy at the top. Walter Chrysler and Phil Hornthal. Everybody in Norfolk knows that. Where'd they meet? In the Navy. I was engaged to Jack Mace when I was at the Virginia Center for World Trade. He ran the Maritime Association, the Shipping Association. Always dealt with the labor union guys. Always all male banquets. And I couldn't understand why, you know, I was engaged and I couldn't even go to the 1,000-man banquet. You know, had a big argument about that. Rock Hudson, where did he meet his guy? Navy. Jim Neighbors, Navy. All of these guys, Navy. So they're tapped for whatever it is, acting, singing, you know. The point is, Liberace, you know.
Was he Navy?
I believe he was. I know that he was, someone told me that he was a friend of one of the guys in Norfolk. There was a ring, a VMI ring of men in Norfolk, and I knew they met once a month, and some of them were married, some of them weren't. But they were all Navy. They were Army, Navy. In other words, it was kind of a group of men in Norfolk. And then I found out that the organizations, like right now, the Al-Anon is run by homosexuals. The Better Business Bureau. The Community Fund, which is the, I forget what it's called now. I'm so old, I'm 55, but it used to be called the Community Fund. That guy. There, Jack Mace, you know. And I'm wondering which one isn't, you know. I mean, they all are, and the guys know it. So what's going on here? You know, they know it. Old Dominion University, the Clyburn, intelligence family. He was well known. 2 reporters on the Virginian Pilot who do the very important columns and so forth. I mean, it's just, so I'm saying, who's making the decisions to do this? They're military. What is the reason behind it? Why do they keep the wives out of the loop?
So when people suggest that the United States of America is becoming a modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah,
absolutely, without
this really is not just a broad generalization.
No.
That this club, as it's grown over the years, and then placing and promoting the key people in every strata of life.
Right, banking.
Then the whole thing, not only the military is run by degenerates and top heavyweight degenerates. People who are moral can't possibly move their way up because they don't qualify.
They kill them, they get rid of them.
They can't be controlled.
No. One example, I was the executive secretary for the Virginia Center for World Trade had a board of the most important, supposedly the most important leaders who were picked out by Jerry Weiner. I was a shill for that. I had, done a lot of great things at Old Dominion. They wondered why I did it because they don't understand Christians. And he knew I was a worker, so they hired me to go over to the World Trade Center, the Virginia Port Authority. I had an office in there. And Jerome Weiner, what's interesting is Mary Clark Collab worked for him.
Okay.
The girl who had my job, who was a normal woman like me, because there were a few who were not so normal, like Bobby Bray. Not the Bobby Bray who ran the Port Authority, but another Bobby Bray. He was very nice, but he was a known homosexual who worked with Weiner. But his secretary was pushed out of a window. Now, it was all hushed up.
Of course, she committed suicide.
Yeah, this was a young mother who had a baby who knew too much about his money laundering. I reported the money laundering that Book and Weiner. Now, this is a professor, head of international programs at Old Dominion University, Jerry Weiner, whose father was very high up in this Zionist group. Jerry Weiner was doing intelligence work in Algeria, in Morocco in particular. He organized this board that I was the secretary for. He was a very sick, mean guy. I mean, you talk about really water. But Jack Mace was on the board, and there was a banker on the board.
We can take a break.
And take a break.
Yeah, did you stop it yet? No, don't stop it. We'll just leave these synchronized. And is your wife getting a cup?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I was thinking I could use a little drink.
But Gustavo...
Do you need to use the restroom or anything?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm thirsty. Yeah, but Gustavo, I love the guy. He was from Columbia. He was in Virginia National Bank, which is now Nations Bank. And, I didn't put him, because I had studied Latin American history under a wonderful Dr. Blossom. I knew a lot of stuff about Latin America and Nariño and how Panama became a part of our country. And, now, I understand it was drugs and running things through and everything, but Gustavo was in charge of all the laundering that was going on in Virginia National Bank in the port. And where did he go after that? He went to Florida. And he introduced me to Anna Maria Quintero, whose brother was one of the big mobsters. The big, Colombian. I met Anna Maria Quintero. See, I don't forget some things like this. That's why they don't like me, because I imprint on wonderful foreign people. I want to know them. I want to send Christmas cards, and And it's not very good to have somebody like a little magnet. I'm sort of like a Monica, you know, she's seeking out sex with important guys. I'm wanting to meet people like that from different cultures because I want to learn about them, because that's what Christ said. You go out and you minister to the people who are foreigners. You don't just spend your time necessarily with the home people. You need your home people as a base. But you need to go out and find out truth and spread goodness everywhere. Truth is goodness. Truth is light. And that's what Christ is all about. You're not afraid to learn truth. You're not.
Thank you.
You know, all these cathedrals and things that were built in his honor. Why? He was wonderful. Why was he wonderful? Not because he hung around a little group, but because he was out trying to. He told the big guys, look, stop being bullies and cowards. Let the poor people into your church. Everybody, God gives us all a unique spirit. Our timing is different. Everybody's fingerprints are different, eyes are. We have the right to read the Gospels.
Yeah.
They shouldn't keep the Bible from us.
That's right.
The church is not a political organization where you've got a few little guys up here telling all the mothers what to do. Who were the ones with Jesus Christ at the, you know, on the third day? There was not one disciple there with him. It was the three women. So why are we leaving women out? Women, in Scotland at least, my culture, we're partners with our men. We need the authority of a husband. We want a strong moral husband. But what is that passage, you know, about the good wife? You know, I can't remember. It's in
Proverbs, I mean, the virtuous
Proverbs.
woman.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
I mean, she's buying, selling property.
Yeah, right.
She's doing everything.
She's certainly not a no-brainer.
So why keep her? Why keep her at home, barefoot and pregnant, and not being able to read and speak 3 languages, and welcome all the foreigners and, you know, to come in? Hey, that's what Jesus Christ would be doing if he were right here. He would be here right with me, saying, "Go for it, little woman." You know, I'm giving you the strength to tell the daggone truth. And if you get killed tomorrow, you're going up there.
You're going to live forever.
That's
anyway.
right.
Well, now these, you mentioned when you get to be a bird colonel, and they have this initiation that involves all the sexual debauchery.
Yeah.
Now, would
Drinking first.
get them good and drunk,
Oh, big time drunk.
because there would be some of these who, if they were sober, they wouldn't go through with it.
Couldn't go through with it.
They'd have to be blasted.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And now, do you suppose, I don't know, your husband maybe told you, when they go through all this stuff that they do, are there people there gathering information,
Of course.
intelligence on them?
Of course. The chaplains are intelligence. You know, in Nazi Germany, that you had to tell on your parents, or in the Soviet Union, they encourage you to tell on your parents. Phil Holwager, the guys who go to Yale, who become chaplains, the chaplain corps is tell all the tales on everybody. They have collections agencies. These Marines are ordered to go and collect so-and-so at so-and-so. If a Marine tells truth, if he's a whistleblower, if the wife is too much trouble, they collect them, they throw them in, they fill them full of chemicals, they'll implant little things in them. I believe that my husband has an implant.
Well, McVeigh said he had a chip implant.
I believe George did. Now ask yourself, all right, George, I know George has had a male friend. Yeah, he had male friends.
Your husband is bisexual.
Yes, he's bisexual. And I was told that by colonels and a captain, by a psychiatrist.
What percentage do you think of these higher-up people are bisexual?
Oh, all of them. If they're in special operations, if they're Marines, they're all bisexuals. They've all had to do it in order to get to be a bird colonel. The SEALs, it's kind of like the fast road to the top. Now.
So a guy could not be a SEAL without having.
Oh,
I
don't believe so. I haven't met one that I don't believe would have done it. And judging from what a couple of colonels told me, it's just, that's the norm. It's just you women, you know, y'all are so sissy, y'all are just, you know, you don't understand how it is. We're under so much pressure. And when Valerie Wilhelm told me that about Charlie, I just could not believe what
Charlie
she was
Wilhelm
saying.
would be a...
He's a general now down in Miami. And she was just saying, oh, well, you know, he's run around. He has to, she said. He's under so much pressure. And I just, and she was saying that, of course, I had met Charlie in Norway, and Charlie is sort of someone my husband just idolizes. And and Michael O'Boyle is another one. Michael is my husband's special friend. And when my husband retired, we went to Al Gray's office. This was a traumatic thing for me. It was a really weird day. We drove up with his son Douglas and my son Garland. We went to the commandant's office. They had, you know, something to nibble on and eat, and, you know, just a little something. And his wife Jan came over from 8th and I Street, the commandant's house, with her dogs. She sleeps with stuffed animals and dogs. I don't think there's any love-making that goes on with Al Gray and his wife, quite honestly, and neither do the colonels. She is a wonderful, sweet person, scared to death. She worked for his intelligence organization, and then she supposedly took care of his mother. And then they married, you know, because he would not have made it. Everybody knew he was a homosexual, not a bisexual. This is a homosexual commandant. I talked to people who actually, one woman who went to one of the parties, she was French, and she married a naval officer. And it was when George and I were first married, and I told George about what she said about General Gray. She said, you cannot believe this man is totally debauched. This man does these group sex orgies outside of Marseille, France. He's just horrible. You know. She said, now I have to admit, I was party girl, you know, went to these parties and so forth. But what would happen is, and I met a guy in the laundromat who was very, very, he was enlisted, and he was involved in Beirut, and he knew my husband. He was going back and forth from Gaeta to the New Jersey, the ship, and then, you know, into Beirut on the beach and everything, and he worked for an admiral. Now this is a big admiral. And the admiral would go to these parties at this big mansion outside of Marseille. What they did was they invited the wild girls, the secretaries, because this went on in Indonesia. My husband had a secretary. Anne Bouchou's husband, Hank, was sleeping with the secretary. My husband was sleeping with the secretary and Anne Bouchou. They were doing, because my husband's wife wasn't there, so they had their ménage à quatre. And of course, my husband was sleeping with Anne Bouchou, who's now, he says, a lesbian, you know, but he was sleeping with her, and, you know, called her right after his wife died, the night, you know. And I found the telephone numbers and, you know, her address and her birthday and all these letters he was writing.
Isn't there a disease that runs rampant with these people?
Yeah, yeah. So, but Al Gray, this guy, would guard the parties. Now, how does that make a young guy feel, who's got a child, he's guarding an orgy with Israelis. There were Israelis at these parties. Intelligence people. Intelligence? There's not intelligence there. There's perversion. There's psychological, you know. These guys are abnormal. They're adolescent. They're not full, complete people. They can't have normal. Anyway. So he's guarding the parties, and he says, the secretary, the girls come in, they stay till about 11. They're all nude, all nudists. The Earls, Jim and Nancy Earl, my husband, Ty Kroll, most of the chiefs, nudists. Makes it easier, you know, to see the little, you know, it's terrible.
They're nudists in the sense that...
Yeah, they're nudist.
Okay, so they have whatever.
Freedom.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see.
Freedom.
It's really kind of religious, isn't it?
Yeah.
With them.
Yeah. But the girls, the women leave at about 11 o'clock. This is what he said. I mean, I knew the girls were there because I'd already talked to the French girl. And he said, well, you know, what they do is the women leave at about 11 o'clock, maybe 1 o'clock, and the guys all stay around there. And it's just the ritual. This is what they do. So, and then I found out.
And these are the guys that send their boys to war.
Yeah, these are the big guys. Then I found out, because my husband would mention this guy and that guy, you know, that he went to school with. Bob Edwards is involved with this stuff. But the guy who recruited him, Charles Caddock, who was a well-known homosexual, who was the, quote, head teacher but the bodyguard for the Saudi boys. See, the Saudi boys were encouraged to do this, to corrupt them. They were corrupting Muslims who would not have done this ordinarily. The parties at Aramco, they would give the young boys, get them really drunk, and encourage Muslim sons to do this kind of stuff.
Muslim sons who would have a strong tendency toward morality.
Yes.
And to abhor this kind of conduct.
That's right.
But if they could get them drunk and loaded enough that they would do
Yes.
this one time,
Yes.
then they would gain a controlling edge on these guys.
And who do you think did it? Charles Caddock and Borland, these guys, Alexander Robinson, Cheeseborough, who was the headmaster. The Saudis bought Russell House at the Hun School in Princeton. They brought over Mohammed Faisal and, you know, Khalid Saud. They didn't really go to classes or whatever. And who was the young man who was partying with them? My husband, George Griggs. Who was in the group with them? Einstein. I mean, my husband was partying with Albert Einstein. I said, well, you know,
And when would this have been? At what age in his life?
52, 53, 54,
Okay.
55. I believe he said that Mohammed came over in 54. It was right after the murder, the poisoning of the one who was really good.
Okay. So your husband would have been a young guy, 18, 19 years old?
Oh, he was only, when they first got to him, he was in high school, so he was ninth grade.
And he would be there?
He was at the school with these homosexuals. They sent his parents to California, got him a little Boy Scout job, his father. He didn't see his parents for 8 solid years. And this is amazing.
I see. So then the transference is these people become your parents.
Oh,
They're the
of
ones you
course.
look up to.
Yeah, but they're doing things to you.
Sure. They're sodomizing you.
Of course.
And Albert Einstein was actually...
Was in that homosexual group, bisexual group. Absolutely. Camus. Sartre. Now, Camus did not, I don't believe my husband actually met Camus, but Camus was a lover of his French teacher at Princeton. Not Todeve, not the one who helped him with his paper whom he had an affair with. And I was told that by normal roommates, whom he had later on, and by another roommate. They knew George was doing this stuff. George was, he was a cheerleader. He was a French major.
Were there any other young teenagers from that particular setting
Yes.
that were also being cultivated?
Edwards. Bob Edwards, who's a Marine Corps colonel, was part of that group. And my husband met with
In high
Bob
school?
Edwards in high school. Bob Edwards went on to Fort Benning. He was in psychological warfare. In fact, he was involved with the subterfuge in after I was injured and my husband socked me in the breast, and I had to have surgery because he'd already broken a leg, and I was starting to document the violence. But I'm such an upfront person, and all I wanted him to say was, "I'm sorry, Kay, I did this." But I was trying to do like they said Rosie Greer did. You put a mirror, if you're battering your wife, you put a mirror up in front of yourself or a photograph, and you try to imprint the lower brain, because I wanted to save his soul. I mean, this guy had murdered his first wife, battered her to death. I mean, he dragged her body back. I mean, it was just, Sue had a cerebral hemorrhage. That's too much for me to get into. But he was doing that to me, and I stopped him from drinking, thinking this would stop the battering. But I started taking notes, taping things, while he'd go in these rages, because I wanted somebody to know. I wanted somebody to help me so I wouldn't die. And I'd had surgery, I'd had broken bones, and I was trying to reach out for some help. And so I was trying to get him to realize what he was doing to me. And I told him, I said, "George, I know you did this to Sue. Do you really want me dead? This is..." So, but he started getting scared, and he was cool.
Did he ever admit to you that he was responsible for his first wife's death?
He came, he said, he admitted that they didn't get along. He admitted that he didn't love her.
That he battered her.
He admitted that he'd hurt her. He admitted that he dragged her body back after she supposedly collapsed at dinner. Now, this is a 200-pound woman. She's huge, because she's not happy. She's sleeping with her dog. She doesn't sleep with her husband because he's too busy sleeping with other people. He doesn't find her attractive. He's sleeping with Nancy Earl, and I mean, it's just the most crazy. And she loves him because he's handsome. And what is she going to do? She's never worked a day in her life. Her mother loves him. It's like me. No, who would believe you that a handsome, wonderful guy, oh, but George is so nice. So, and this is what the wives go through. They know that it'll be hard. So, the guys just, what George did was, he had clout in the State Department, and they knew that I just loved showing people around. So he would plan something that I just had to do. I would be hooked, like a hook and a fish. And he had some dignitaries who came over from, where did they come from? They were parliamentarians from, I think these were from one of the Latin American countries, Panama. And of course we had to go to Richmond. So I had to stay overnight with them, and George didn't want to go with me. And it just so happened that Bob Edwards, his Army colonel friend, invited him to come up and meet with some of the guys, at New Hope, Pennsylvania, or Bucks County, or wherever it was. Well, he had already been talking to Phil Holwager about the abuse, because I had gone in for surgery. And I thought it was very unusual that Phil Holwager was there during the surgery, kind of holding George's hand. It wasn't for me. It was to make sure George didn't fall apart, to make sure that the doctor, I didn't say anything when I was under sodium pentothal, covering George's ass, excuse my French. But he was the chaplain at Fleet Marine Force Atlantic and was the chaplain for Sue's funeral. He knew what George had done. And he runs around on his wife, he's playing golf all the time. He and George were playing golf with this single woman, and I found out, and I said, "What are you all," he's the so-called chaplain, and he went to school with Gary Hart. He was a classmate of Gary Hart's at Yale, and you know, a colleague of Pat Robertson's. That's why he, you know, not that saying that Pat Robertson does that kind of thing. I don't think he does. I'm sure he doesn't. But they went to Yale, and so forth. But so George was a violent man, and he started knowing that I was sort of going to do something. So he started doing certain things. And, you know, now looking back, I can see why, because of the violence. He wouldn't have been able to use his .45 anymore if he'd been
convicted of battering.
Yeah, he would not have been able to use his pistol anymore, carry it. So they wanted to make sure that he was protected. So the wife has got to go. The wife is way down the totem pole. It doesn't matter what wife, and that's the reason the wives are so afraid, the Marine wives. And they all talk cryptically, and, you know, they even talk outside the house.
Talk cryptically. There's code words and double meaning words. And
yeah.
What's 10 p.m. Saturday TV?
Your satellite, remember? Don't we got to switch it, Tim?
Not on Saturdays.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, okay, just thought I'd remind you. I thought
Okay.
we used to talk about earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, I think this pretty well sums up this segment. Unless is there anything you can think of? I can see where we'll do this again sometime as this develops on. Tomorrow, let's see, tomorrow's Sunday. Monday, what we'll do. Is it always if we make a copy of this, so there's two of these?
Yeah,
in case
sure.
something happens
Absolutely.
to you and yours.
Sure.
Okay, we'll make copies of this stuff tomorrow. Don't lose that.
No. But this is interesting. It talks about sabotage, subterfuge. This is the standard Army book teaching men to lie, cheat, steal, be peeping toms on women. Now, if they don't allow women in there and they can peeping tom all the wives they want, they don't need movies, pornography. They you know, and they go on all the TADs they want.
TAD is a...
Just take off, just tell their wife they're going. And they can lie, because it's all secret. We don't have to tell our wives anything.
And it's intelligence. It's work.
Oh, it's intelligence. Yeah, sure, it's intelligence. That's interesting. But this is really, I mean, you know, this is full of, and this is just a mild SEAL commando T-shirt.
Can you hold it up to the camera?
Yeah.
For me to
That's a T-shirt that a SEAL would wear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
leave it up for a minute.
I played Nancy Drew, Miss Marple, and I infiltrated, if that's the word you could use, the SEAL reunion this year. They spent a lot of money showing off, you know, jumping out of helicopters, and, you know, probably $100,000 was spent. I don't know how much, but I mean, the military was providing the funds for this little game on the beach at Fort Story.
Yeah.
And then there was, each one of the teams has T-shirts, which all sexual.
Yeah.
You know, all about, I mean, think about every
the
weapon.
driving motivation
Is sexual.
of all this stuff is
Go for it.
yeah.
So I went to the party. I took my life in my hands. I called a couple of friends and said, if I don't come back, I'm at the SEAL party, and I'm going to pretend that I'm a SEAL wife. And I'm gonna go to this drunken party, and of course I have an Eagle on my car. They try to get me to get rid of it.
So you can get access.
So I went in there, and do you know that 90% of the people there were men? They didn't have wives, this party.
And the women that were there were probably
Yeah, a few wives, but feeling very uncomfortable. So I sort of got in with some of the older SEALs.
Did your husband ever mention the name of Lieutenant Colonel Bo Greitz?
No, but I know who he is. But he has a lot of Army friends, not that he doesn't know Bogarts. I'm sure that Bogarts is well known to some of these guys. I believe he's Army.
Could be.
I'm sure he's not a Marine. I know he's not a Marine. I don't believe he's a Marine.
Okay.
But he's a guerrilla. He's a commando.
Yeah, but his name didn't come up as anything in intelligence.
No, my husband was way above Bogarts' level. My husband mentioned people like McFarlane and Crow. Crow was his tennis buddy, I think, you know. Haig.
Alexander
Kissinger. The Victor Krulak. See, Gray is the control guy. Gray and Joy. Joy's big guy but Joy lost his job at Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, I believe, because I told somebody, maybe that I didn't think wasn't because of me that he lost his job, but they made him move on somewhere else. Because he was at Morale, Welfare, Recreation, which is kind of a money laundering thing. They run all the officers' clubs, all the recreation. It's not a private. I mean, it's all run by the military, even though it's supposedly not military. And they give the good old boys these jobs. I mean, he was probably earning $200,000. Their retirement for a colonel, my husband, just the retirement salary was $50,000, $60,000. Then they give them these other jobs, so their income is $200,000, $300,000. Now, that is not right.
But it would certainly purchase loyalty.
Oh, definitely. They all get swimming pools behind their house.
Who's ever going to bite the hand that feeds that good?
No, nobody. Dirty business, you know, but all of the captains and all of the admirals know this and wink. And it's sick. It's sick. It's just really, really, really bad. And this is taxpayer money. Hard working people who are just wondering where the money is going to come from to pay their taxes. Mothers of children who are having to work 2 jobs to feed their 3 children. And they're spending $10 million on phallic-shaped weapons. I went to the Army show just last week. I was up there. They had a hearing on Okinawan rapes a day. You know, they call it a murder rape a day or whatever, you know. Crime a day by Marines in Okinawa. And I went up there. John Conyers had a hearing. And they also had the Army show, which I had gone to a couple of years before. And in the basement of this big hotel, they have these 200 or more vendors of weapons. Israel has a joint venture. IAI has a joint venture with, is it TWR, that does all the credit reports on Americans.
Whoa.
Now, they have the computers together. The Israelis stole the whole INSLAW system and sold it back to the Justice Department. And there were murders over that. Mike Fuller knows all. Mike Fuller was a former assassin who's talking, and they are after him. Believe me, I met him through Sarah. He and...
what about this Victor Marchenko? You're pictured with him. What's that all about?
Well, he is a typical example of the mercenary who is brought over from Czechoslovakia, Poland, Romania, the Eastern Bloc countries, who were actually KGB, double agents.
Oh, Marchenko is... Okay.
The family, his family were, his family came over. They weren't even citizens. In other words, they bring over the young men.
Right.
They work for 5 years, and then they become citizens. Now, I'm not saying, I mean, I've read his books. I wanted to meet the guy. He knows George. He knows who George is. I read 2 of his books just to see if it's what George said, you know, to kind of balance, and what these other guys. If you read Marchenko's book, you'll see what my husband, the arrogance. Well, sure, we're going to go into this embassy. You know, we're going to put a whore with this person, and we're going to spy on them and what they're doing, and, you know, we're going to just steal that statue just for the hell of it. You know, I mean, now when you multiply every one of the teams, all the graduates, and think in terms of 100 men applying, and maybe 90 go through most of the training, but they don't quite make it. And then they've got, you know, 400, 600 men who make it, how many don't make it, and then you multiply that over time, and then the ones who are, I mean, this banquet, I mean, this gathering of SEALs that I went to, there were probably 1,000 guys there. Now they have to do a cold kill. You know,
Cold kill.
Kill somebody, murder somebody, just to prove they can do it, like ducks.
Wait a minute, the SEALs?
Yeah, SEALs.
So like all 1,000 of these guys have killed
They've
somebody.
done a cold kill, yeah.
Now a cold kill would be a killing under orders?
It's a graduation exercise kind of thing. You know, it's
I mean, who would
Well,
they kill?
oh, it's just somebody, just anybody. Just
get out.
go into a hotel and whack off somebody. You know, I was told that for graduation exercises, the greatest thing they could do was to break into a general or an admiral's wife's house and steal some things, you know, personal items. And
To prove that you were good enough to get in
oh
and
yeah,
out.
oh yeah. And all of my underwear disappeared, my lingerie, my teddies. And the funny thing is that I don't know whether it was Michael O'Boyle doing it because he was, from 1991 to 1993, Michael O'Boyle was 3 miles away from my husband. He was at his graduation exercise. He was very close to my husband. And yet he was just down the road, and I started questioning my husband about, you know, what is this about you and Michael? You know, what's going on? Well, Michael was there, and my husband never told me he was there, and he saw him all the time. And I'm looking back at when my teddies disappeared, but all this time, now Michael he and his first wife had divorced, that's okay, but he had an affair with a woman and a child, a secretary. So he was having an affair with a woman. I mean, Michael is both ways, you know what I mean? But in order to get into the system, he sort of did it with my husband. He was my husband's friend, younger friend. And that started when he was in the 7th Fleet under Krulak and Buell in intelligence on the ship. So, but Michael, there he was at Little Creek, my husband's best friend. He never invited him over, but he saw him. So I don't know, you can guess what that means. But the teams, the biological electronic warfare school that after my husband left FMF Lant, he went to the school, you know, the Special Operations School, which ran the teams, foreigners, and everywhere.
Okay, now the term MAC-SOG, what does that mean? What is that? It
was a kind of a code word for going out and sending platoons to kill people in Vietnam. SOG is Special Operations Group. Special Operations, SO, SS, OSS, Secret Service, SS, Nazi, Spetsnaz, the German stormtroopers. They all, if you know anything about the German high command, it's the Brotherhood. It's called, they are connected with the Opus Dei, which is an Italian kind of a business group that works within the Vatican. And I'm told that, and I like the Pope, I think he's a wonderful guy, but I'm told that he was involved with that during World War II.
I've heard that too.
And that the guy who was the Pope before was murdered so that he could get in.
Now, I'm still curious about the seals in this murder thing.
Are we still on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, a seal, in order to complete his indoctrination, becoming a, quote, full-fledged seal, part of that includes the fact he has to have killed somebody.
Yeah.
All right, and it could
SEAL
be
Team 6, right, the red team.
Red team.
The Ghetto was the captain of that team, and his wife and I had wonderful conversation.
And would she confirm this as well? I mean, did she confirm this with you?
I guess she would. She's scared. She's frightened. Most of these women are scared to death because they're warned. They know what happened to Sue Griggs.
Okay, so
They
but they
know.
support you, I mean,
Yeah.
philosophically, in their
Yeah.
hearts at least,
Oh,
if not
yeah.
with their lips.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
they
yeah.
s-
We talk about it. Some of them have to go out of their house. Some of them won't even talk in the office in which they work. They've had men come by their houses. They've had their papers stolen.
I mean, association with
They're-
you could be the kiss of death.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And they know that. But we talk anyway. And you're talking about some really brave women here. And when I talked to, there are a couple of colonels' wives, and before I went public, you know, they were talking to me, except for Carolyn Millis was she turned just like that. She was the one whose house I was in when I told about the go-go dancers in the officers club and me taking the picture and thinking about writing the letter to the wives. And she said, "Oh, you can't do that. You'll ruin George's career." In other words, Carolyn has really bought into the system, and she's very pretty and she's very influential with the wives group, but she'll turn on you in a second. And it really hurt me because I was, you know, I kind of depended on her and Charlotte Moore. But when I went public, when I started telling people what I knew little bit by little bit just to get my courage, and then when I finally went to visit Sarah McClendon, it was like, you see, I told you. I mean, Sarah McClendon called my house and they told her it was an army base. I mean, it was a military base, and that the Griggses didn't live there anymore. Ha, ha, ha. See this paper? You know, then I was totally shut off. But until that point, I went in to see Peggy Sheehan. You know, we had tea and food, and he was the head of NATO SACLAN. And his wife, Peggy, said, just, Kay, this is so strange. She said, just leave a note on your refrigerator. Yeah, for George. Just leave a note on your refrigerator.
Meaning?
In other words, he's coming in the house. They're coming in the house. It'll get to George. This is SOP, standard operating procedure. You know, just get used to it, used to being battered, used to being...
Well, she was a worshiper of the security of the position, the money and everything, and just don't rock the boat because this is the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And we don't want it any differently.
No.
I mean, they could
If
desire
you
it
have to
more.
divorce your husband, then, you know, that's just the way it is. But it's cold calculating, and yet so un-American. So un-American. I mean, I know what Americans like because everybody in my family were, you know, World War II. My brother was a briefer for the SACLAN staff. He went on to be a medical doctor. You know, I mean, this is not course, he got out as soon as he could.
Well, you know, people who love this country and love its history, I mean, are just completely confused.
Yeah.
From cab drivers to
Yeah.
bartenders. I mean, nobody can figure out what's going on. Why is it everything goes the wrong direction?
You know what I say? When I started this, it was like a maybe a 2,000-piece puzzle. I know enough. It's like a puzzle for a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old with 6 pieces. It's so easy to see. And everybody who talks to me sees it the same way.
And the 2.5-year-old child had 10 shallow ice pick wounds in her chest in the form of an S. I asked Helena, I said, Helena, what did that S stand for? And she said, Satanism. So this was a shock to me. The McDonald case, this man's in jail. I couldn't understand it. I went on national television, a number of national TV shows. I debated Freddie Kassab, the father-in-law, on CNN. And also a psychiatrist was there. And I talked about this satanic aspect. And I had people calling me from all over the country, telling me the same basic story, from the East Coast, the West Coast, North and South. And I had people that, what you call them multi-generation Satanists. That's somebody who was born into it, mother, father, grandfather, grandmother are involved in Satanism. And adult survivors, that's somebody that gets out, usually has to go into hiding to survive. I had these people call me from all over the country telling me about the ceremonies and about the extent of the satanic movement in this country today. So I started investigating it myself. I gave a number of lectures on it. I had some national exposure, of course. And the bottom line is it's very easily explained. And it fits into a pattern. And this goes back some 200 years. I'm going to use as a textbook tonight Pawns in the Game. It's a book that was written by William Guy Carr. He's a retired commander in the Canadian Naval Force. And he had heard about the conspiracy and wanted to delve into it himself. He wrote a very compact book about what's going on with the Illuminati and how this fits into modern day plans, what's going on in the world today. So we're going to use that as a textbook for the first 2 hours, and the second 2 hours we'll have some case studies.
I'm sort of an interpreter. I kind of give a lot of the wives hope, and the guys too, who are already out and scared, and you know, and they say, hey, well, this little woman, she's a real feisty, you know what? And I don't know whether they're going to kill her, what they're going to do, and they say, aren't you afraid? And I say, yes. I mean, I've had death threats, and I mean, it's been hell. But truth and light and what these other women are going through, the hell they're going through, being put through hell because their husbands are cowards and bullies. I mean, people who dress up in black, who hide behind trees, who shoot people from behind, who break into houses and steal their papers. This is in the Constitution. You don't break into someone's home. You don't steal their papers. You don't try to destroy the core that God has given them when they're born. Mothers have sons, and their sons are 18 years old, and they were telling them, join the Marine Corps to be a man? It's not a man. It's not a man who does this. It's a pervert. That's why they're not joining up anymore. That's why they're not signing up. They're having problems with retention because the mothers are finding out. McVeigh's mothers talked. Unabomber's mothers and brothers have talked, you know. Guys like Colonel Ron Ray is talking, who was Timothy, what's his the new boy who refused to wear the UN uniform?
Oh, Michael New.
Michael New?
Yeah.
These are the heroes. Michael New is the MacArthur. Randy Hebert is the future Patton. these are the leaders. These are the Americans, and there are a lot of them. There are hundreds of thousands of them. And just like in the days of Jesus Christ, these modern day Sadducees and Pharisees are saying, oh, we're going to kill Jesus. We're going to get rid of MacArthur. We're going to get rid of Patton. We're going to get rid of New. We're going to get rid of Colonel Sabo, murdered him. We're going to get rid of these guys one by hey, but everyone, this is physics, everyone, like Sue Griggs that's murdered, Sabo who's murdered, the wives who are murdered, Ron Brown, there are 100 people who spring up and say, now you got me to worry about. This is why these guys have got little places hidden all over the place. They're training all the guys to just say, oh, well, the American citizens are bad. But the guys they're training are also gonna wake up to what's going on. It's Caspar Weinberger. It's Henry Kissinger. I mean, Walt Whitman Rostow. Eugene Debs Rostow. What's going on here? These guys aren't even born in America. What's happening here? They're training mercenaries now to run, flip around, we'll kill on an order. Not killing because people are breaking into our homes, not killing because they're bad, but just we want to control this country. That's what George told me. It's political. The military, the Marine Corps is a political arm of a group that wants to run everything, control the drugs, sell the weapons, keep the weapons flow going, and this isn't what guys are going to sign up to do. Their heart's not in it. They're not going to even do it for the money. They'd rather die than have hit squads come after them, collection groups from Great Lakes. They have a group of Marines who goes out and collects guys who have gone to their psychiatrist and they're a little bit talking too much. They get rid of them. But they're not told why. They're just told they're enemies or they've done bad things. So they don't, it's kind of like they don't, so they won't have any guilt and culpability. They make it cold. Just get rid of this guy, okay? Okay, get a promotion, get a new car, get some stock. After my husband did what he did in Beirut, I found these stubs. He got all this stock. AT&T, major stock, just thousands of dollars worth of stock. And it was from a company that was like a quasi-government company, all on a sheet of paper. And of course it was big time stock. And that's how he was paid off. Stock.
And paid off for?
For doing criminal activities, selling weapons, going through Tel Aviv, the bank in Rome, selling the weapons illegally. The Israeli agents are the middlemen. And all the money's going to Israel. It really is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
The money, not just the money that is given to them free and clear, but all the black budget money that Meyer Lansky's group started back in the 40s has been growing and growing and growing. It's like a pyramid scheme. And the Jesuits, I've been told, are really controlled by this group now. I don't,
Now, surely Ollie North is a good guy.
No, I think he was farmed. He was, but see, Ollie was involved in Vietnam with the JAGs, covering up a lot of the stuff that was going on. He was involved with a major case where there was a Marine, George told me about this. See, George was involved with a lot of the cover-ups of Marines who went crazy. Like, remember this, A Few Good Men, Was it A Few Good Men? It was a movie about a Marine colonel. They murdered a guy from, Jack Nicholson played the colonel in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
You remember?
Yeah, he went on trial.
Yes.
And a
George
good guy
was the chief of
prosecuted.
staff who tried to cover this up. My husband.
The true story.
The true story. My husband was the guy who was covering this up. They were so arrogant. And it was the woman who was the JAG who got this thing going. It was not the Navy JAG, because he was going to cover it up. He was just a loose kind of guy. And if he had been the JAG, then it wouldn't have been prosecuted. But it was the woman who was working with him, because she was a woman, who got these other guys off. They were targeting these other guys. I mean, they would have put him in jail just for a little bit and, you know, let him out. But the point is, this guy was murdered. And the colonel laughed it off. It was down there in Guantanamo Bay. And George was the chief of, it was Al Gray. Al Gray. That was, I mean, just that one alone. And Lone Tree, they were involved with that. Because see, oh, it's just so sick. I mean, they are so easy.
Let's pray.
Okay.
I'll tell you, this has been a tremendous.
I'm going to let you take this home and read this letter. Or did you take the letter? You got the letter? Okay. Take this and put the letter in there, because you'll see the glasses in there. That's
Okay.
Bless your heart for sitting through all this.
You know, it's just
I'm sorry.
I couldn't stay down very long because I could hear a little bit.
Okay, everything is rolling?
Is this been recording?
Yep, the red light's on. Okay, let's say a word of prayer. Lord Jesus, we're thankful for this day and opportunity to do your service. Lord, you said you should know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And that's what we're interested in accomplishing here today, in Jesus' name. What we're going to do, we're just going to record a bunch of stuff here, and we can do some more tomorrow. If we forget something today, it doesn't matter, we can put it in. If you think of something in 20 minutes that should have been said right up front, it doesn't matter.
Great.
We are simply wanting to reduce this down to tape so that it doesn't get lost.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
And the big job lays ahead. That's the editing. Okay? So I want you to completely relax. There is nothing that can't be done, redone. If we sneeze, if we cough, if, you know, anything can
That's
be fixed.
reassuring.
If the ceiling caves in, all we do is clean up the mess and keep going.
Okay.
So everything here is real laid back. You've got a lot of information, and we want to get this down into a storyline, because I think what you've got here is something that is extremely important for people to know about.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about you, and see now where'd you start out your life? You were born and raised in the country?
Yeah,
the city?
I was raised on a farm. In fact, I live in the same neighborhood in which I grew up. It was my grandfather's farm. Part of it was divided into thirds. But in 1939, my grandfather was an obstetrician in Norfolk. He was also in the Naval Reserves. He was in charge of military intelligence in Norfolk, which is the largest military naval complex in the world. So I was born in the Naval Hospital, which was the NATO headquarters, and brought home to my grandparents' farm. My father was in the South China Seas on a naval vessel. My uncle was in the Navy. So I come from a long line of military civilian folks. They were not full time military individuals. They had jobs, and they would go into the war. They would be in reserves, and as my grandfather was, he stayed in and retired a Navy captain. But I live in a house that was in part of my grandfather's field. And,
is that right?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
But I'm being strangled financially by this Army intelligence group, JAG group, that my husband...
Now, JAG, is that J-A-G?
JAG, Judge Advocate General. I think American citizens do not realize how many JAGs are in our court system, and they take orders. They are in the chain of command, they're active reserve, and they are in our court system everywhere you look.
Not just federal, state and local?
Everywhere, yeah. And they're going to meetings once a month, and if there is a case like many of the military intelligence wives, like myself, and we have information that would come out in a divorce hearing or whatever, they totally control it. It is Judge John Moore in my case in Virginia Beach is an Army Ranger. He is active reserve. He's a VMI Army colonel. He's a graduate of VMI. In Virginia Beach, in the courts, there are at least 6 judges, and I'm including commissioners in that, because in Virginia we have a system where the commissioners do a lot of the decisions, and all of these in Virginia Beach who take care of military wives are military judges.
No, you mentioned the term VMI. What is that?
Well, VMI is Virginia Military Institute, and it's where General Marshall, the Marshall Plan, went to school. It's a little West Point. There's a lot of tradition there, but it's based on the Greek sort of Spartan military concept. And my father went to Washington and Lee, which is also in Lexington. And I know that there is some sort of, I won't say cult, but there probably is some sort of
club?
Secret society.
Okay.
And so it's very, very tight clique. But what I was trying to say is that the judges are military men, and they're not independent. They take orders.
They take orders.
There's a chain of command, and in my particular case and the other 11 military wives whom I have met so far, there are many, many more, but they've all been handled the same way. Mm-hmm. That's not a normal divorce at all.
Yeah, I've heard of these kind of situations before, but it's never been put so concisely and so reasonably that there would be a connection why some people just, no matter what attorney you have, it doesn't matter.
Oh, no.
The divorces and the settlements of assets never go the right way.
No, and there's a FISA court, which I know is involved in my case.
What kind of court?
Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's a Justice Department secret court that American citizens are not aware of. There have been a couple of articles on it. It's a small group of men, and I think there's a woman on it. I believe there's 7 justices. And in reality, the article that I read, which was given to me by Mike Fuller, and I know he would not mind me using his name, he's a government assassin. He was like my husband, a government assassin who did...
When you say assassin, you're talking like character assassination or kill people?
No, killing people.
Okay.
He's a mercenary, government mercenary.
Okay.
He was in Afghanistan and in Rhodesia, South Africa. And I met him and his wife through Sarah McClendon. He's a real wonderful patriot who is speaking out about what the NATO community and the Army and Marine Corps are doing.
And Sarah McClendon, she's an old warhorse, isn't she?
Sarah saved my life, literally.
Really?
Yeah. I had been having break-ins starting the night of March the 4th, after I was calling everywhere to see if I could find my husband. He would, disappear at times. And I found my husband's diary, which I have here, which they have been not anxious to have get out.
Uh-huh. No, they meaning?
General Sheehan, General Krulak, Marine Corps colonels, generals, Al Gray, Cook, and especially General Joy.
Joy.
General Jim Joy
Uh-huh.
and General Carl Steiner they're evil men. And they are in this diary meeting with my husband almost every day in Beirut. They trained the men in black who killed those people in Waco. It was General Joy and General Steiner. Steiner's army, dirty tricks, special operations. And this is what my husband does for a living, is train mercenaries, young boys from countries like Romania, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, all these countries. They're training them to be murderers, and the taxpayers' dollars are paying for this.
Okay, now they train them just through the normal channels of the military. These kids join the Army or the Marine Corps, and then they select these kids based on some criteria to train them?
They psychologically profile them. The profile, which is similar to my husband's and Lee Harvey Oswald's and McVeigh's and some of the others who were all part of this program. Jeffrey Dahmler was profiled and hidden. What most Americans do not know is that all of these men were
Jeffrey
Army.
Dahmer, he has a military background?
Of course. They're all Army.
Oh, okay.
They were all picked out because they're perverted or twisted.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sexually perverted.
Sexually perverted and therefore,
Yeah.
Well, now I don't think McVeigh was perverted the way Dahmler was, but certainly the group that my husband is overseeing are twisted.
So part of the criteria, they look for people who have got something in their history that gives them a weird bend.
Yeah.
Like they were molested when they were a child,
Yeah.
or they come from dysfunctional families, abuse, whatever.
Strong mother, weak father, no father, poor. Because these guys are looking for security, so they will stay in the military and do anything
Okay.
for that security. This was my husband's scenario. My husband and Oswald are just two peas in a pod. Exactly the same personality, the same type, in the same elite group, I might add, which was doing work with communists and Russians, with Czechoslovakians and with Romanians. I met assassins, I met drug lords, Fahim Kordobawi, whose family were the drug lords in the Bekaa Valley. I mean, he knows the elite of the elite of the elite, and that's why I was warned twice not to talk.
And you were warned,
I was told that I would be killed. I was told that
your
I
husband
would
warned you about this, or?
Oh, my husband warned me early on in it, but he knew that he loved me in the beginning. I'm sure he really did. But he's a robot, my husband, except when he's drinking. And I think that's why he drank, because the first 3 years of marriage, he was telling me everything. And I come from a very strong Protestant Southern culture, which, when you're talking about shooting people like ducks, the only thing I can relate it to is my brother's going duck hunting, and that's what George would tell me it was like. Killing is just, you know, it's nothing. There's no emotion involved. You just get rid of somebody. And he said he was an existentialist and that these murders were necessary, and, you know, very matter of fact. And I'd sort of go, yep, and we'd be eating dinner, and I was trying to get him to know Christ, you know, to sort of understand a little bit about my background and America's background. But his group they are not Christians. They're what he calls existentialist, and they study German Clausewitz and Nietzsche, Sartre, Camus, Montesquieu. And his thesis at Princeton, which was written for him by a very good friend of his named Todevay, who was a French count, and his thesis was on this. And it was, supposedly it was in French, but my French is better than his, so he could not have written that by himself. I know that. I know it was written for him. But in the intelligence world, and in the communist world, and the world that my husband was in, one had to know French because all of the terrorist trainers and the guys who were funding all the guerrillas and everything were in Paris and New Orleans. They would go back and forth. Still, the 4th Marines is out of New Orleans. And that's been going on a long time, ever since Disraeli, even before, I think. But they had hit squads and, you know, undercover groups in New Orleans. And George would go to New Orleans, all the Marines. I mean, this is where they train, do terrorist training, Lake Pontchartrain and places like that.
Okay, and then this would be during the 1980s?
Yeah, 1980s.
Okay.
From the I think New Orleans has been a school for a place where debauchery and murder and cults and
flourished.
yeah.
Well, there's a New Orleans connection with the JF Kennedy assassination.
Well, you see, Oswald, my husband and Oswald were in the same club. General Jim Joy is in that club. General Louis Buell, who was my husband's benefactor, or whatever you want to call it, is in that club. There is in fact, I've got the name of, there are Russians in that club.
Yeah, feel free to grab any reference material.
Yeah,
You've got our
what I want to tell you about General Al Gray, my husband was the chief of staff for General Al Gray, who was the commandant of the Marine Corps. And I probably shouldn't say this on the tape, and you all can get rid of it, but he's a homosexual.
Gray.
Gray.
Okay.
He's what they call a cherry Marine. Now, I'm not anti, I'm trying to find my, I hope I've got it. Yeah, here it is.
Now, this
Vietnam
term cherry Marine,
Cherry
is that
Marine.
That's a common phrase in the military.
See, the thing is, you know, they're guys and they're girls, and I just came from such a real prudish culture.
Yeah.
You know.
That's fine. You came from a normal culture.
And I'm not judging them, but the Vietnam War, I know a lot about that, about the MACSOG program and the Phoenix program, because George was involved with a very important part of that. Not important, really, but he and Al Gray and Louis Buell and Michael O'Boyle and Ollie Whipple were. Do you remember the Manguez and the Pueblo? Was it the
the seizure of that little ship?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was, it's run by the mob. then. It was a mob military partnership, joint. It was a joint operation in Korea and in Vietnam. The highest levels of the Marine Corps and the Army in those special operations levels, the individuals are actually in the mob. New Jersey.
You're talking about the mafia type mob?
I'm talking about the Brooklyn, New Jersey mob. My husband, Al Gray, Sheehan, they're all Brooklyn. Cap Weinberger. Heinz Kissinger, there's the Boston mob, which was shipping weapons back and forth to Northern Ireland. And I don't want to get too deeply involved in that, but it goes, Israel, some of the Zionists who came over from Germany, according to my husband, were, see, he works with those people. They do a lot of money laundering in the banks, cash transactions for the drugs that they're bringing over through Latin America, the Southern Mafia, the Dixie Mafia, which is now my husband's involved with in Miami. The military are all involved once they retire. They're, you know, they go into this drug and secondary weapons sales. And before I forget, I want to find the name of this Russian who worked with Al Gray, who was my husband's boss, and trying to see where I wrote it. I may have to look and find that another.
It's no trouble at all. How are we doing over there, guys? Sound good? How much time is rolled on the clock? On your clock? You can speak. That's
20 minutes.
20? Okay, good.
I can't find it right now. I'll find it.
Right.
The Vietnam was really important because a lot of experiments were done on boys who went over there.
Mm-hmm.
I had, since my husband disappeared and since they have been psychologically trying to destroy me, financially trying to destroy me, because I'm telling the truth. His first wife, I know, was murdered.
Okay.
She was, according to a psychiatrist whose name I probably won't give because he's an honorable man. I was given permission before I went public with Sarah McClendon at the press club anonymously, but they knew who I was on the 3rd of July, 1996, was when I came out with a small group of people. But before that time, they were trying to handle me, to try and get me to be quiet. They tried threatening me and so forth. And I'm trying to remember where I was, what I was going to, the point I was going to make. I can't remember now what I was going to. It was something important. Oh, yeah, General Jim Joy.
Yeah.
I called General Jim Joy on the phone. I was trying to find where my husband was because I didn't know whether I'd have any money to, food to eat or what. He just walked away, and I knew that the Marine Corps knew where he was. But I was being handled psychologically. On the 4th of March, my home was broken into. They had elaborate plans to handle me.
The 4th of March, 96?
1996.
96.
And keep in mind, he had disappeared on the 28th of December.
Of 96.
Of 96, 95.
Okay,
So put yourself in my shoes. I have no idea where he is. He's done this before, and each time I was totally traumatized. So I get...
What happened during this break-in?
Well, they were looking for the diary, which I have here.
Okay.
I don't have the original copy, but this is the diary.
Okay, can you lift it up so
Yeah,
we can...
sure.
Yeah, just
This is it. It's his Beirut diary.
kind of hold those.
Yeah. This is it.
Okay.
And it's in his handwriting. The Beirut diary tells how the intelligence community, the Army and Marine Corps assassins, snipers, are how they operate in a city during a crisis. My husband was the liaison between the White House and President Jamal. So my husband is a friend of Scrowcroft, McFarland's a Marine. All of these men are personal friends of George's. Colby, I spoke with personally on the phone. 2 weeks later, he was murdered. He went to Princeton. My husband knew him. He knew my husband. He told me, Colby told me that...
Now, this is General Colby?
No, this is William Colby, who was head of the CIA.
Oh, okay, yes.
Who was murdered in a...
so-called boating
I
accident.
know exactly how that happened because, you see, the SEAL teams 6, 4, 6, and 8 are on the East Coast, and then the odd numbers are on the West Coast. And some of the people who are affiliated with the SEALs, I shouldn't say that. I'm not going to say it. But
Well, it wouldn't be hard for a SEAL to come from underwater and tip the boat over and make sure the man's dead, that sort of thing?
the Israelis train with the SEALs. They do a lot of wet ops, murders,
Okay.
over here because of some sort of arrangement. The young boys, I met 3 young assassins on a bus, going up back and forth to Sarah as I went on the bus because they were sabotaging my car so often. So I sat next to 2 young assassins, one from Romania, one from Haiti. And I let them know that I understand, how it is. And this little boy cried. I won't mention which one it was because it may get back to him. But he told me it was the same scenario. His mother, he lives on $850 a month. Now these are mercenaries working. The taxpayers are paying mercenaries. The taxpayers are paying young men who are not citizens of the United States to kill innocent people, women and children. They get on a flight from Norfolk and Oceana. They fly to Stuttgart, and I was told this is what they do. Then they go by a special helicopter to countries like Turkey, like the part of Iraq, to Algeria, to parts of Africa, and they do wet ops. They'll just, murder 5, 10, 20 people, and then they blame it on the Arabs, or they blame it on somebody else, but it's actually NATO rogue assassins, because there are men from Australia, South Africa, Britain, that I've been able to determine, and a lot of these other little countries that are sort of wanting to get into NATO, they have little boys that they pick out, and they call them special. They use the word special, meaning elite, irregular, in order to entice these boys because they don't have much ego. So if you call being a criminal, in other words, they are protected. They know that they are above the law. That's what my husband's above the law. Judge John Moore is above the law. Colonel Barry Cantor, my husband's JAG colonel lawyer, is above the law. Grover Wright, Marine Corps. A lot of these guys who were judges had their wives gotten rid of. Judge John Moore had his first wife thrown into a mental institution before he became a judge. He battered her. And I spoke with a man who has a Purple Heart, two people who knew Hannah very well. And Hannah Moore was deeply in love with her husband. He got back from Vietnam. He was an Army Ranger. He battered her. He physically and psychologically abused her. And she started screaming, you know, doing what because I was battered and bruised. A lot of wives are by these Vietnam vets. But if they're a colonel or if they're a rising star, the wife has got to be crazy because they've got too much invested in these men. And it's a very small cult. I mean, I have heard the things that they do when they're colonels. It's some of the same things that they do in Cap and Gown, which is the Princeton version of Skull and Bones. My husband went to Princeton after he went to the Hun School for 4 years.
Okay, now we should probably clarify a little bit about, you mentioned Skull and Bones, and many of the people wouldn't be familiar with that, and the Cap and Gown. So what are these clubs that these young inductees are pulled into, secret societies?
Secret societies. And
again, is this to make them feel super special?
Yes.
And also put a control on them
Yes.
so that you never tell these secrets?
Yes.
Oh.
That's it. You have got it.
You know, I've heard a lot of child molesters. I mean, people who
Yes.
are not connected with the military, just plain old child molesters, will molest a child and then tell them, now if you ever tell, you know, they'll take a cat and strangle it and kill it or something. This is what I'm going to do to your mother. This is what
Yes.
I'll do to you.
Yes.
Bad things will happen if you ever tell.
That's right.
And children grow up believing that I must never ever tell. And they don't, generally,
That's right.
unless someone comes along to help them see the light and come out of it.
Yes.
And what happens is that you have the cover-up. There are so many stories where the story of this Satanism and this child abuse starts to come to light, and immediately the lid goes on because the system controls the various aspects that can keep the lid on. This is just one example. There's endless numbers around the world. The Franklin cover-up. It was an investigation by this guy, John W. DeCamp, who was former state senator in Nebraska, and he started investigating this guy, Lawrence King, a major Republican who sang the American national anthem in 1984 and 1988, I think it was, at the Republican convention. And he was investigating him for financial fraud through an organization called the Franklin Savings and Loans. But then he discovered that he's running a pedophile ring and providing children for the biggest names in America. And he wrote this book, The Franklin Cover-Up, Child Abuse, Satanism, again, they go together all the time, and murder in Nebraska. And what happened? Some of it got into this Washington Times, a mainstream newspaper, the connection to the Reagan-Bush administration, but most of it was totally covered up. I've been writing in my books now since 1998 that Father George Bush is a notorious pedophile, child torturer, child killer, and serial killer of adults as well. Said it on American radio. Still waiting for a response. And this is one example. A lady who became a friend of mine, Kathy O'Brien, who was in the American government mind control project since she was a kid. And met her many times. She still corresponds with me now and again. And I've met a daughter that she was talking about. Lovely, lovely girl. Totally shattered by these people. And that's one example of millions and millions that are going on around the world. And this is what she said in a book, Transformation of America. Kelly's bleeding rectum was but one of many physical indicators of George Bush's pedophile perversions. I have overheard him speak blatantly of his sexual abuse of her on many occasions. He used this and threats to her life to pull my strings and control me. The psychological ramifications of being raped by a pedophile president are mind-shattering enough. but reportedly Bush further reinforced the traumas to Kelly's mind with sophisticated NASA electronic and drug mind control devices. Bush also instilled the "who you're gonna call and I'll be watching you" binds on Kelly, further reinforcing her state of helplessness. The systematic tortures and trauma that I endured as a child now seem trite by comparison. They're not. I know what she went through. To the brutal physical and psychological devastation that George Bush inflicted on my daughter. And that's just one of these people involving one of the victims of this. It's incredible, the scale of it, and it's going on in this country. And what happens? The wall goes up. This is what DeCamp found. Suddenly ranks are pulled in, and the media won't touch it, the social services won't touch it, the police won't touch it, politicians won't touch it. It's the blueprint, it's how it works. And the Discovery Channel program, produced by Yorkshire Television, was about to go to air, exposing that Franklin cover-up and the paedophile connections. Bingo, it was censored and pulled just before it was going to air. Never to see the light of day, although you can get it on the internet, because one copy survived.
Okay, that tells you a little bit about cults and satanic cults and preschools. By the way, Dr. Roland Summit, psychiatrist at UCLA, has told me that he's also involved in these issues, that he has intelligence information and otherwise that there are more than 50 preschools around the country where they claim that there's been sexual ritual abuse, and tunnels are located under the schools, more than 50 of them. The McMartin family traveled all over the world because they were experts in putting preschools together, organizing them, showing them how to build the schools and so forth. There were more than 5,500 children went through this McMartin school from the time it was built in 1966 until 1983, when this incident was alleged to have taken place. The cults use these 2-, 3-, and 4-year-old children for several purposes. Number one, they use them for pornographic films. There's a lot of money, $10 billion a year, pornographic business in this country. They use them in their initiation. They consider them initiated into the cult, even though their parents don't know about it. And they use them as part of their ceremonies. In other words, they need children in certain ceremonies. Now, I've been told, well, now don't tell me the kids, if they witnessed a human sacrifice or the sacrifice of a baby, that they wouldn't go home and tell their parents about it. But I'll tell you what a little girl in the McMartin case told me. And she told her mother, and her mother told me. She told her mother that she witnessed these sacrifices, and that on one occasion, after her mother dropped her off in the morning and before the mother picked her up at night, she was taken to her bedroom, back to her home. They went into the house. They sexually molested her in the home, in the bedroom. They left a little token there. They took her little baby kitten, took the kitten into the school, and had a ceremony and sacrificed the kitten in front of her. Then they told the little girl, they said, if you talk to your mother or your father, we're going to do this to your mother, your father, and your little brother. Now, don't tell me that a kid's going to talk under those conditions. They're petrified. They also talked about men coming in and sexually molesting them dressed in police uniforms, dressed as Santa Claus, and so forth. I'm sorry to say that the Bureau has changed. There's no question about it. The FBI today, in 1996, is being used by the politicians to further their gains and their goals. So, there are a few things that have happened to me, some major matters that have happened to me since my retirement. And most recently, I was giving a lecture in Las Vegas, and I sat at the head table next to a gentleman. And this gentleman, in his day, had been in naval intelligence, and he was telling me that on December the 4th, 1941, 3 days before Pearl Harbor, he was in the communications room in Washington, D.C., a naval intelligence officer, and we received, the U.S. government received a communication, an intercept of Japanese message that had been sent, and we had broken the Japanese code, And this message stated that we were going to bomb Pearl Harbor on December the 7th. He was very elated to have received this. He passed it up to his superior. His superior passed it on. After the war was over, he came back to Washington, D.C. and was told he was going to have to testify. They had a congressional hearing on this. He was given a subpoena. His boss called him in and said, even though you have a subpoena, you're not going to testify. And he said, well, I don't understand this. He says, look, you don't understand now, someday you will. You're not going to testify. And he didn't testify. Now, it's been documented, and I've heard it on a number of occasions, that we knew about Pearl Harbor in advance. This is the first time I've had information directly from a person who was aware of this. I also received some information recently in my tours and lectures and what have you. I did a TV show in Long Beach, California. One of the gentlemen involved in the show was in the U.S. Army at one time. He told me that in the spring of 1973, we had bombed all of the North Vietnamese supply lines. We had mined their harbors. They were cut off. And one of his associates was in the communication room in Saigon. And this is, of course, a classified job. And when he was in this room, he received this message from the North Vietnamese: we surrender unconditionally. He passed it on to his superiors, and all Army personnel were immediately ushered out and replaced by State Department personnel. It was shortly thereafter that Kissinger met with the North Vietnamese officials in Paris, France. Why do these things happen? Why did we not take advantage of the advance notice of Pearl Harbor? And why is it necessary for us to be a subservient to North Vietnam when we obviously have won? I think at the end of this lecture, you may have the answer. In fact, I'm sure you'll have the answer. I think you'll understand much better than you do and have in recent years.
And you see, my husband is frightened to death. I believe that his brother was murdered to keep him in, because he had gone through 4 years of this mind control. And the man who did it, you can see this on the video, his name was Charles Caddock, and another man named Alexander Robinson.
Okay, Charles Caddock.
Caddock.
And the other one?
Alexander Robinson. Alexander Robinson was a Marine, very well-connected Presbyterian family, whose family member was the influential one who brought over the Saudis. The original Saudi head of Saudi Arabia was George told me all this about Mohammed Faisal, Khalid Faisal, and Saud Faisal, and there were something like 32 brothers of the then in the mid-50s, the ordained, whoever was head of Saudi Arabia. It was actually the United States who chose that person, because the United States, through Charles Caddock and that group, murdered the good one, the one whom everybody liked, who was well educated, and who was normal. In, I believe it was 1952, 1953, 1954, in Paris, the universal Saudi, the well-educated Saudi, was poisoned.
And what was his name?
Charles Caddock.
I don't suppose it's all that important, but anyway.
I'm trying to remember. I think it was Fahim, or he died in Paris. And so his brother, his half-brother or whatever, was the father of all these 32 boys, and the 3 oldest now were snuck into the United States. I have a degree in history, Virginia history, undergraduate degree, and master's in Scottish history. And being a Southerner, we always look at, past is prologue. And I jumped into the Saudi Arabian books to try and find out something about the Hun School, which is in Princeton, started by a physicist connected with Einstein in that group. So I was looking for the Hun School because I knew they went there. And they're in all the brochures. They're very proud to say, you know, we have the Saudi royals went here. President Cheeseborough brags about going over there and being wined and dined, and, you know. So I only found one reference, but it was a reference that said something like they went to a prep school in the United States. That's all they said. Well, it was the Hun school, and my husband was one of the playmates. Charles Caddock was the bodyguard, quote-unquote teacher for these guys. So they would go out and play in the woods, and they were doing homosexual things with them. You know, I mean, there was a lot of money. They bought a big house.
Yeah.
And so.
Okay, now, I was momentarily distracted.
Okay.
Explain to me a little bit about this, the homosexual event here.
Well, George, for the first 3 years of our marriage, was drinking entirely too much. And he was trying to let me know about his world. And I'm not judging him. He's a bisexual.
Okay, and he
believe.
needed help.
He needed help, he needed
Still
love,
does.
he needed cry. He
Yeah.
still does. He really needs help. And the handlers knew that I was changing him. I was taking him away from this crazy cult
Right.
that he'd been in all these years. And I mean, we were going to church. He even walked down the aisle one time when Tony Evans preached at Scope. I mean, he was overwhelmed. And
At Scope. Now, what
at
is?
Scope in Norfolk, it's a big auditorium.
Okay.
And so, but he was a little boy when he was, it's mind control. MK Ultra, somebody said. They had a group of men, psychiatrists in New Jersey. I don't know where this place was, but they would go, and even his roommates in Princeton told me about it. George never, intentionally, he never introduced me to any of his friends. So I had to cold call all these people. I got their names and addresses, telephone numbers. I called all these roommates at the Hun School and at Princeton. They told me things about George and, you know, holding hands with, you know, with Caddock and other people, about being a cheerleader and going off and so forth.
Now, a cheerleader, this is a kind of a trade name, right?
No, he was a cheerleader for the
At Princeton.
At Princeton. And he
Okay.
traveled with the football team.
Okay.
And here is a guy like that. They put him in the Marine Corps. I don't think that was very nice. Do you know what I'm saying? It was hard for him. But
But it was part of the long-term vision.
Absolutely. They wanted him long term. And it's because of the Saudis. This is what I believe and what his roommate believes. He had a roommate at Princeton who was also at the Hun, who's a dear, dear, wonderful. His mother is an Anglican. His father was a Jewish doctor from Brooklyn, and Jack is a dear. And we talk to each other a lot on the phone. George sort of, you know, dismissed him because George was getting in with another crowd. George got into Cap and Gown, which is the same kind of fraternity. I mean, it's an eating club at Princeton for intelligence officers.
It's Cap and Gown. Would they have anybody involved that wasn't intelligence-oriented?
Football players and so forth. But I have a feeling that Cap and Gown has a lot of intelligence officers and boys who may have been raped. Of course, they'd never talk about it.
Right.
But I know that the initiation is, they get very drunk, and even in the Marine Corps they do that. It's called dining in. They have the shellback ceremony. They do a lot of homosexual enticement. The boys are, when they come in, when they're new recruits, they strip them nude, they violate their personal parts. There's a lot of that is going on.
What about
even now?
Tailhook?
Yeah.
Is there a connection?
Yeah, sure, because the cream of the crop is doing this. They're having group sex parties.
And that was a Navy operation too, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the Navy and the Marine Corps.
Of course not. Maybe we ought to for those
That's another.
that tailhook, they don't know anything about. Tailhook was refresh our memories.
Well, tailhook. In fact, when I was single in Norfolk, I know one of the people who was deeply involved with tailhook, who was the captain of the Saratoga, was very much involved with this kind of behavior. I know a lot about the. See, I never thought about group sex. This is so awful for me to contemplate that these orgies are going on all over the Mediterranean, that the captains, lieutenants, the men who rise to the top are the ones who are picked to play the games, the pool parties, the nude pool parties. And they have secretaries who come in. I've talked to 3 guys, and of course my husband, who went to these parties. But what they do is, and this is General Al Gray, who was the main prime mover, they would go to a place like Aix-les-Rosés, where Charles Caddock, this teacher who inducted, got my husband into it, he retired in one of these all-male party houses on the Mediterranean. I mean, that's where and my husband kept up with him all through the years.
But these sex parties and orgies, they're all homosexual in nature, or
well,
is there some heterosexual?
They start off with the wild secretaries. It's kind of, my husband did those in Indonesia. He did them at a place in Northern Virginia with his first wife. I did not know any of this. I knew absolutely none of this when I married him. He told me he was loyal to his wife. He wanted me to think he was just apple pie, because I'm just a one-man woman.
Right.
When I took that oath to marry him, love, honor, and obey, that's me. But he, when he was married to his first wife, was just an addict. He was a sexual addict, an alcoholic addict. He loves, terror, and his whole little soul was just being sucked away from him desperately. And he needs Christ. He needed me day in and day out. He did not need to be. What he's doing now is running more of these operations.
As you describe this, I can't help but think of Bill Clinton.
Well, of course he was. He was one of those profile boys. But the difference between Bill Clinton, and I'm not saying Bill Clinton's better, but Bill Clinton did not he didn't know anything about the assassinations. Bill Clinton, when I was living with Sarah McClendon, the senior White House correspondent who saved my life, because she said, Mrs. Griggs, you get up here to Washington right now or you're dead. You're going to be dead. And I still feel as though I probably will be. I'll certainly be financially ruined. They are still doing psychological operations in my home, sabotaging my car, messing with my telephone, my radio. You cannot believe what I've been through in the last 2 years. It is horrible. And it's being done to other women and other wives and other men who don't go along with the program. They are murdering Marines, they're murdering sailors.
These are the tactics that they use. They criticize the government, at least some of the people that they pulled out of the woodwork, in order that they will be accepted in patriot circles. And then these people criticize people like me. They think they can be accepted, and it discredits me. Now, is this COINTELPRO program and this disinformation program on the internet, has it affected my life? You bet it has. Because I'm not being invited to these big conferences anymore where I could give a lecture in front of 300, 400, 500 people. This is exactly what the rogue, covert, criminal government enterprise wants. That's why they do it. So what's the reward for me? Now I'm going to tell you what's happened to me in the last 30 years. And I'm not telling you this because I'm looking for pity or I'm looking for sympathy or anything. These are facts. Okay? Anyway, what's happened to me, I've had 3 contracts on my life. Okay? I've had 2 other probable contracts. And I will give you just a little detail about the contracts that were put on me so that you will understand it's not just talk right off the top of my head. I might mention that in 2 of these instances, through divine intervention, I did not go home. I lived in 500 South Kelton in Westwood. This was in the 1980s, or mid-1980s. And I had a door, I lived in a triplex, and my door opened up onto the street. The landlady who lived behind me on the 2nd floor came home one morning, 1:30 in the morning, and here's 2 guys sitting across from my front door in a car. And one of them gets out and walks over to her, "Do you know where Ted Gunnerson lives?" And I told her, "If anybody ever asks about me, you don't know me." And of course she said no, she didn't know. Well, she told me that the next day. And I made some phone calls, and I learned that there was a contract on me. And fortunately, I do have some good sources, and it's kept me alive. But what it really has kept me alive is on that particular night, I didn't go home. I stayed at a friend's house at the last minute. So I say it's through divine intervention that I didn't go home on that particular night. So one of my contacts says, I used to work with, and he gave me his name, who is known as the cocaine king of the West Coast. Let me go talk to him. Let's go talk to him. So there were 4 of us, and we went to talk to the, quote, cocaine king of the West Coast. And we go in, the fellow comes to the door, lets us in. We had an appointment, it was on a Monday. He escorts us into the parlor, and then he takes us from the parlor into another room, and we sit down, and a little dog comes in about this big, and smelled all of us, and sat down at my feet, and went to sleep. And the, quote, cocaine king of the West Coast comes in, looks at the 4 of us. My dog likes you, I like you. And I'm saying, I'm sure happy about that. To myself, of course. So the cocaine of the West Coast tells the other 3 to scat out of the room and sits down with me, and he says, how many children do you have? Well, I know what the message meant. You know, if you screw up, your kids' lives are in danger. And I told him. Then he pulls this Artist's Conception out. He had a copy of the Artist's Conception. And he said, who gave this to you? And I said, if you're going to do harm to him, I'm not going to tell you. I'll take the heat myself. And he was kind of miffed about that. He said, I didn't say I was going to do anything to him. I said, okay, promise you won't, and I'll tell you. So I told him the story about the accountant and so on and so forth. And he said, okay. He said, let me make a phone call. I'll be right back. So he left the room, and he came back. He says, you're right. You got a hit on you. I can take care of one of them. I can't take care of the other one. I said, I got 2 hits on me? Yeah. So I said, well, take care of the one, and I'll see what I can do about the other one. And So he left and came back again. He said, okay, I made a phone call. Don't go home or to your office until Friday. This was Monday. So I lived in a hotel room that whole week with a gun under my pillow, and I didn't move. I paid cash for the room. That was before you had to furnish identification. And it's kind of interesting because every time somebody walked down the hall in the middle of the night, I would wake up. And it was after that that I, by the way, that hit was taken off, thanks to him. He called me later and asked me to do a favor about 6 months later, and I won't need to go into that. But the point of this story is divine intervention. I didn't go home that night. A friend of mine said, stay with me this night and, we'll go from there. And so anyway, I ended up I had some friends drive me to Dallas. I remember I slept in the back of the car, in the back seat of the car, for like 21 hours. That's how long it took to drive to Dallas, because I hadn't had any sleep in a week. And then while I was over there, I'm saying to myself, I got to get rid of this other head. This is all New World Order stuff. This is all Illuminati. Okay, they put hits out on people all the time. Don't bat an eye. So I'm over there, and I get a call from a fellow in Los Angeles. Come over, I want to talk to you. And this particular person had some pretty good contacts, because he knew about my situation. He knew I had 2 hits put on me at the same time. And long story short, this particular person was able to take the second hit off of me. That was just one. On another occasion, 1986, I said to myself, I've had enough cops and robbers in my life. I'm getting out, and I'm going to go in business for myself. Divine intervention, again. The good Lord wasn't going to let me get out of this work that I'm doing. And I invested every dime I had, and I lost it all. And so I had to go back in to private investigation work. I didn't have to, because I had a pretty good retirement check. So this fellow, I was living with my business partner and his wife and kid. My business partner went overseas, went to Argentina, I think it was. And he was gone for a while. And then my daughter had a road trip, and I house sat for her. And on that particular night, an individual, and I found out later his name was Bill Mincer, known as Charles Manson II, came into the house about 11 o'clock. She was on the 3rd floor, it was a tri-level, and heard him coming in. And the dog went bananas. She closed the door, went to the telephone to make a phone call. Didn't work because the phone down in the kitchen had been taken off the hook. And she sat there and waited it out, got her gun out. He didn't come upstairs. Again, I made some phone calls, and I didn't go home that night because when my daughter came back from her road trip, I was staying at her house, and we decided to watch a movie at the last minute. So, divine intervention. Absolutely no question about it. And the other 2 probables, I don't need to go into them, but there was a fellow who was hanging around my P.O. box for quite a while, and I'd have to send somebody else in to pick up my mail. This is all New World Order, as I said a few moments ago. This is all what they do. They kill people. And Kucinich, not Kucinich, but I forget the congressman, huh? No, there's a congressman from Ohio, I think it's Kucinich. Yeah, he has asked for an inquiry into the CIA hit teams that are operating in this country today. Okay, he's asked for an inquiry, but nobody's paying any attention to him. That's just one. I can't tell you how many illegal burglaries, illegal entries I've had into my home. It's like Grand Central Station. They're in and out of there, and it's unbelievable. I took a trip when I was in Nebraska. I was gone for about 3 weeks. I came back, and I had my research, 500 boxes of research over a period of years, stored in the 3rd bedroom. They helped themselves to 200 boxes of my research. Okay? They're in and out of my car on a regular basis. I can, right here in L.A., I parked down, I remember parking downtown, and I came back, and they do this all the time, turn the direction signal on. I start the car up, the direction signal's on. I had my car stolen twice. I had my brake lines cut. I have had 2 windows shot out when I was standing nearby. They were intimidating me. They weren't real bullets, fortunately. They were air bullets. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to intimidate me. I've been poisoned in Las Vegas. I was poisoned. And what they did there, the only way they could have poisoned me is they had the condominium next to me, and they were pumping poison in through the air ducts. I had my right front tire come off I was driving between Omaha and Lincoln, 60 miles, 75 miles an hour. The right front tire came off. Highway Patrol came, looked at it. It was John DeCamp's pickup truck, by the way. I had gone from Lincoln to Omaha to talk to a source. And the only way they would know that was by tapping John's telephones. And I found out, the highway patrolman looked at it, he says, hey, your lug nuts have been loosened. And they tried to loosen the lug nuts on the left front tire, but somebody must have interrupted them because they weren't successful there. They wanted both tires to come off at the same time. My mail's been opened, diverted, and intercepted. My phone was cut off once. And I called the phone company. I said, hey, you discontinued my phone. Why? And they said, well, we sent you a bill. You didn't pay it. I said, well, where'd you send it? They sent it to a fictitious address in Florida. Never heard of it. I've had mail disappear. People written to me, and I've never received it. Surveillances are almost a daily occurrence. And what I do is I do U-turns on them and get around behind them and chase them. And they try to intimidate me. Look, I was in a gun battle in Memphis, Tennessee at the airport. If they're going to intimidate me, they're not going to intimidate me. I'm not afraid of them. I've dealt with terrorists when I was in the FBI. And I remember when back in about 90 or 91, they put a dirt bag out, just parked across the street, maybe 4 or 5 cars up. And I would see them there, and I'd put on my gun, go out and get in my car, drive by at 3 miles an hour, stare them down, do a U-turn, 3 miles an hour, stare them down. Then I'd park in behind them. And they couldn't get out of there fast enough. One of them ran a red light. Then I chased another one and cornered him on the street, blocked him, and I reached under my front seat like I was going for a piece, and his eyes got big as saucers. And I was on a street that went up the hill and down. It was one way. I went up and down and parked at the bottom of the hill, and then he started coming up, and I was watching the rearview mirror. I could see the top of the car, and when he saw me, he stopped and backed up the wrong way in a one-way street. By the way, I've got some pretty good license numbers, a lot of license numbers that I'm saving. My business has been sabotaged, Virginia McCullough. I've had telephone taps. I sued GTE back in the 80s, got an out-of-court settlement. I've had threatening phone calls. I came back from a trip once, and I got up in the morning. I was looking for a file on a desk, and I had a phone call, 827. The voice said, male voice said, did you find your file? Click. They had a hidden camera in my house. I was gassed on the freeway, attempted gas on the freeway. They gassed my webmaster, Clarence Malcolm. I've interrupted 2 attempts to steal my car. I've had flat tires. In one instance, I had 3 nails in the same tire. That's a little more than a coincidence, I think. I've had my gun stolen. I had 4 guns stolen out of my house in Nebraska. I sleep with a gun under my pillow. I got a combat magnum. And one day, this is a couple of years ago, I check it regularly. I checked it and somebody had come in and taken the bullets out of it. So if they came in on me, I was going to have to throw the gun at them, I guess. Cameras, they'd taken pictures of me. I've been, my webmaster was hit with uranium-235. I know for a fact I've had a trash cover on me. My computer has been sabotaged. I've been expelled from the Ex-Agent Society. I've talked about my plants, the disinformation program, McCullough, Horowitz, and so forth. Those are just the life of a person who dares to take them on. Also, I might mention that in the early 1980s, I had 4 investigations on me. I know because I applied through the Freedom of Information Act. And one of the reports came, they sent me back. It wasn't anything significant, a couple of pages on a report. And they said, in the interest of, quote, national security, we can't give you the full file. But it's kind of interesting because one of the reports at the end said that they consider me armed and dangerous. Okay, well, I am armed and dangerous with knowledge, right? Thanks. Thank you, sir. Pam Fawcett. They put a girl on me, Pam Fawcett. DEA and the FBI. I dealt with her on the phone for 6 months. She was in Modesto. Tried to set me up on a drug deal. And she called me one day and said, I need to talk to you. She came down. I met her at the time, I think it was Hughes Market or Ralph's Market across from the this place on Ventura Boulevard, the Sportsman's Lodge. And she told me that the whole story about how they had tried to set me up through her and drugs through her. And I said, Pam, why are you coming over to my side now? I had the names of the FBI agent and the DEA agents who dealt with her. She said, and I was trying to help her on the phone. I tried to help her with her 14-year-old kid. He got in trouble down in Florida. And she said, I woke up the other morning and I realized you're the only honest son of a bitch I've talked to in 6 months. Those were her exact words. Pam took a polygraph, passed it, and last time I talked to her, she said there was a hit on her. Oh, here's Kucinich, Dennis Kucinich, that was it. This is in American Free Press, April the 6th, 2009. Dennis calls for a probe of U.S. hit team. So, what do we have? Well, we have the NSA and the FBI have teamed up with AT&T and Verizon to spy on U.S. citizens. This is all documented. President Bush reauthorized a secret program more than 30 times to spy on Americans since September 11th, 2001. U.S. government NSA has tapped its entire internet system. FBI can hear everything you say even when cell phones are off. The code word for this program is Quantico. All payphones at Grand Central Station in New York are tapped. The Bush administration began spying on Americans 7 months prior to 9/11. The President authorized our intelligence agencies to database every citizen in the U.S. 7 months prior to September 11. Project Endgame, the rounding up of 775,000 Americans by the shadow government, began on February 24th, 2009. 2 of my very closest friends, very frankly, have disappeared. I don't know what's happened to them. We have thousands of guillotines that were shipped in here from Japan in Atlanta, Georgia. We have 500,000 caskets that hold 40 bodies in each casket. We have 1,000 internment camps around the country. We have sensors on the major highways every quarter of a mile. I talked to one of the installers right here in California.
What was that?
Sensors. But that keeps track of your car. Sensors, yeah. Did I pronounce it right or wrong? That's right? Okay. Yeah, I went to school in Nebraska, so I have an excuse sometimes, okay? We have the Patriot Act. I don't tell you about the Patriot Act. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of that. Okay? The Constitution violations and the amendments that they've done away with through the Patriot Act are, got them here someplace. All of them. Probably all of them. Yeah, here they are. The 6th Amendment, right to a speedy trial. 8th Amendment, no cruel and unusual punishment. 13th Amendment, punishment without conviction. It took 262 Republicans, 77 Democrats to kill the Bill of Rights. This is all part, as I said earlier, of the terrorist movement. I told you about the guillotines, the caskets. We have U.S. troops in the United States, Holloman Air Force Base, Air Force, German Air Force. A lady came up to me back in the 90s and said that she was from New Mexico. She deliberately dated a German airman from Holloman to find out what they were doing here. He said, when the revolution starts, we're going to strafe the cities. Beatrice, Nebraska, where I lived for a short period. Town of 12,500. They have an on the base there, they have an airport. The airport is the runway is more than a mile long. There's no commercial airplanes come in there, it's all private. They are expanding the length of the airport. Why? So bigger planes can land there, I guess. But there's no commercial planes coming in, over a mile long now. The chemtrails, one of my sources told me that the planes in the north, Midwest, chemtrails are out of the Air National Guard, Lincoln, Nebraska. I made a trip to the airport and I found 4 giant airplanes with no markings on them on the runway at the Air National Guard. Another informant told me Fort Sill, Oklahoma is what they're using in the southern, southwest United States. Okay, that kind of gives you, I think I laid the foundation pretty well, didn't I? Yeah. Okay, that just tells you what they're after. Okay, I'm not the only victim. There's thousands of Americans out there. By the way, I've been shot with a laser beam twice in my back. Fortunately, they're not very good aims. And my webmaster, Clarence Malcolm, has been shot also.
Of course, one of the best ways for you to stay alive is to do what you're doing.
Really?
Reduce this, oh, absolutely. Reduce this to video, get this scattered all over the country. They won't touch you because if you're dead, that validates everything you're saying, see. So,
well, they poison people.
Publicity is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, one of the things that was happening to me after, I must tell you about General Joy. I found his name all through the diary. And what was really strange was that George had mentioned him early on in the marriage, but then after a certain incident at Camp Lejeune, which I think is very interesting relating to tailhook and something that I did there. I'll tell you about that if I can remember. I called, it took a lot for me to get General Joy's phone number. Because the Marine colonels were not going to tell me. Because they knew I was investigating. So nobody would tell me about General Joy. I called a person in George's address book who was a general, pretending that, I was updating my Christmas card list.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to find Jim Joy's telephone number. He said, oh, he's up there. He's running morale, welfare, recreation for the world, a payoff job with the mob. And he's living outside of Quantico, and here's his phone number. So I call him up, and keep in mind, my husband is infamous, Princeton graduate, chief of staff for Al Gray, who runs all the dirty tricks for the Army. Linda Tripp worked for Carl Steiner, who was a partner of, Jim Joy and Carl Steiner and my husband were the triumvirate in Beirut.
Okay.
And Linda Tripp worked for Carl Steiner down there.
This would be approximately?
I think in the 80s. She and her husband were both Delta Force duos. They send them, but then they divorced, so that broke up that. But she's a dirty tricks person, Linda. Anyway, so I call General Joy and I say, General Joy, this is Kay Griggs, and I'm George Griggs' wife, chief of staff under Al Gray, head of half the world, dirty tricks, special operations, wet ops. And he goes, no, I don't believe I know your husband. Exactly his words. And I'm taping it, by the way, because they took my tape. They started coming in and putting sticky stuff and running my, just mind jagging me.
Putting sticky stuff
On the tapes, and they would put the tapes on different, they would go to a lot of trouble. They would take things that I said on one tape and put it on another, and I mean, they were having fun with me psychologically. But I taped this conversation with General Joy, and I said, well, that's really strange, General Joy, that you don't know my husband, because I'm sitting here on my bed, and I'm looking at my husband's diary.